When your heart is raised to raise at the speed of light. When your heart is raised at the speed of light. When your heart is raised to raise at the speed of light. When your heart is raised at the speed of light.
Jag lever safe. Jag lever safe from wherever you go. When your heart is raised to raise it, and you feel like you got nowhere else to go.
When your heart is raised to raise at the speed of light. When your heart is raised at the speed of light. When your heart is raised to raise at the speed of light. When your heart is raised at the speed of light.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to day 2 of the Royale Masters Summer Clash event. Yesterday, we had triple Elixir, and today we're going to have triple Draft. That's right, AC's favorite game mode, well, until Mega Draft was introduced. Hello, everybody. I'm Andrew Guy. Joining me is Joshua AC Sharon, a former CRL champion. No big deal, CRL West. Let's make sure that asterisk is there on the board, AC.
All right. Too early in the morning.
How you doing today, man? Triple Draft, I know you're a big fan. Talk to me about it really quick.
Yeah, I mean, any kind of draft form. I've probably, in the last 2 weeks, played 60 or 70 games of Mega Draft. And, wow. I mean, just any form of draft is so fun. There's so many different ways you can do it. You can either, I mean, it's you draft one card, and then you base everything off of that. And it's like, oh, should I go defensive or ultra offense? There's so many different ways to just play the game in draft. And so I just love draft.
That's right. If you are a big fan of Triple Draft and you're wondering what is going on, this isn't CRL East 2020. Well, let me tell you what's going on. This is Royale Masters Summer Clash, and we got a lot of fun party modes going on. Like I said, yesterday was Triple Elixir, today's Triple Draft. Next week, we have Sudden Death and Heist, and then the following Sunday, a week from tomorrow, we have our championship. But who's going to be in that championship? Well, it's going to be the top 2 players from every single day. If there are repeat customers that end up in that top 2, we will go to the 3rd place or 4th place if necessary. Yesterday, it was a big day for Over, and maybe you've heard of him, Mohammed Light, picking up 1st and 2nd place in our Triple Elixir competition yesterday. It was so much fun. I mean, I've never cast Triple Elixir at a competitive level, so really enjoyed that. And as you guys can see, for our championship day next Sunday, not tomorrow, but next Sunday, we have all 4 of the modes that you guys saw or are going to see on broadcast. Plus, if we get to that game 5 and that best of 5, a mirror match, a friendly mirror battle, which is a great way to make you want to throw your phone. AC. We're also here for money. We did give away a little bit of money yesterday. We gave actually a good amount of money yesterday.
That's right. $20,000 is going to be the overall prize pool. The open qualifiers, which is what we saw yesterday, what we saw today, what we're going to see next Friday and next Saturday. It's going to be $3,500 given out every single day. First place receives $1,500. Second place receives $800. And those 2 players are also going to be moving on to the next round. They're going to be making it to the championships, $400, $200, and then $150 for 5th through 8th. And then the combination championship, that's going to be $6,000 with $1,800 and $1,200 going to 1st and 2nd respectively.
Yeah, I mean, really honestly, if you came in here and had a good time with the qualifiers, you could actually stack a lot of cash by going all the way through and picking up that championship. And talking about people that could be doing that, we have 8 competitors here today. One of them is a repeat winner of yesterday. The other, trainer Adnan, is a repeat player of yesterday who actually was not able to get in the top 2, but he is here once again. You and I have cast a lot of stuff together, and Adnan is one of those guys that, honestly, if he just showed up at World Finals in 2023, whether it was by winning a golden ticket or through the leaderboard, would you really even be surprised?
Not at all. I have been such a fan of his gameplay, especially over the last couple of years. He'll just come out of nowhere. There's been times where I've just been in a random clan. He'll join, he'll stay for 2 days, and during those 2 days, he never loses. Like,
He did that in my clan too.
yeah.
I just remembered him doing that. I was like, is this the real Adnan? And it totally was. That's crazy. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, so apparently he does it to a lot of people, and I'm guessing he didn't lose when he was in your clan either. He is so stellar and so consistent inside this game.
Yeah, let's take a look at the bracket here. Like I said, we got a couple repeats, as I said, Mohammed Light and Adnan. No surprise for those two guys. Ttone is someone that we've actually cast a few matches for. Glad to see him here. That's a great first-round matchup between him and Adnan. Then we have Bulls Felix and Agony King. Agony King, a pretty big name out there in the world. We'll see. I'm pretty sure he's a Sparky player, right? Isn't that what
Yes,
Agony
sir.
King is known for?
Sparky Heal Spirit. There you go.
Sparky Heal Spirit, my favorite to run into on ladder. And then we got Damp and Mohammed Light, Tribe Wallace, and Chris. So we got a couple world finalists, a world champion, some great players out there in the mix, and a handful of players who are, you know, kind of lesser known. But remember, it's best of 3, single elimination in triple draft. So really, truly, anything can happen.
Yes. And for some reason, we're seeing a lot of 4-letter names in these competitions. We've seen Over, Damp, and then there was one other one that I saw in here. And I don't know.
Chris?
I don't really see those. Yeah, there you go, Chris.
Yeah.
And so I don't know why we're seeing so many in this competition, but it's kind of nice.
Maybe that's what we're doing wrong. Maybe we just need to have 4-letter names and then we'll be good at the game. Someone who's had an incredibly successful, I guess just June. I mean, we could just call it year if we want, but June specifically. Mohammed Light, you were just talking to me about this run that he's been on over the last week.
Yeah, that's right. Let me go and check. So June 18th, he ended up going, what was it, 8-0 overall, 4-0 in sets, and won the monthly finals. Then let's take a look at June 22nd. That's when he was in the ESL Snapdragon Mobile Open Mega Draft Finals. Okay, so I guess it was Mega Draft.
Oh, it was Mega Draft.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he won a Mega Draft tournament on June 22nd, and then 21 hours ago, June 23rd, he won a triple Elixir tournament. So 6 days, 3 titles, and yeah, nobody Mega Draft as well. Wow.
I love it. I know. I didn't know it was Mega Draft, and then now we've got Heist and Sudden Death next week. But right now we're here in Triple Draft. Just to let you guys know, wondering, well, where's the drafting? Obviously, we're not going to show you the drafting because if you spectate drafting, it is very uneventful. It's just cards that are blank with question marks going in either direction. Although sometimes the BM starts then, and that is a lot of fun. The other thing is that yesterday we saw a ton of card evolutions. Mohammed Light busted out the skeletons once. He won once with the barbs. I think was the only person to win with the barbs. And then we saw a ton of competitors, or a ton of our competitors, running Royal Giant and, of course, running Firecracker, the 2 most popular evolved cards, it looks like. But remember, it's Triple Draft, which means there are no card evolutions today. Just a lot of, I don't know, chess, if you will, going on in your mind when you're drafting. I'm not good at Triple Draft, even though I have beat you at it.
Okay. All right. So 155 left in the game. Bandit down below. That should be able to get a shot. No, wow. Great placement on the Firecracker, and that's going to keep the tower fairly healthy. Flying Machine placed over the middle to take up the Firecracker.
Yeah, so, I mean, AC, feel free if you'd like. You don't have to do this, but, you know, when you're playing through Triple Draft, talk to me about coaching me through this really quick. So in the first maybe 1.5 to 2 minutes, you're really just trying to figure out what your opponent's deck is, what their win condition is, and then maybe what their biggest weakness is. I mean, looks like right here we're seeing a big pile up in the bridge, maybe knowing that Fireball was out of cycle or late. I mean, what is the strategy when you're playing Triple Elixir, at least from the AC point of view?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'm not exactly sure how you're supposed to play it because every deck, I mean, so right now when you're Adnan and you've recognized that Ttone hasn't used Big Spell yet, so that's going to be very
Yeah.
important, which means, okay, so yeah, he hasn't used a Big Spell, so what does that mean? Well, it means he doesn't really have an answer for your Zap, for your Mother Witch, for your Flying Machine. So it's not going to have Fireball, obviously, because you have it, but that just means that when you have defensive possessions, that should be your way to defend. And so a lot of it is just figuring out your ways to defend, where you can finally get aggressive on offense. That's why we finally see the snowball come down.
Yeah, really great snowball there. And here we go. Here's kind of a pile-up. It's almost baiting out the big spell going, what do you got, man? I played my Flying Machine behind tower. Now I'm playing my Flying Machine right on top of my Mother Witch. You know, now I'll give you Zappy's value if they stayed alive. So I like what Adnan is doing just to see, because also, I mean, again, it's been so long since I've done like a true triple draft. Like, a lot of times when those spells are up for grabs and you see that you have a big spell and a small spell, that usually means your opponent had the option for a big spell and a small spell as well, right?
Yeah, I believe so. And it's kind of weird because it's just been so long since I've played triple draft that I'm not even sure. I think that's how it goes, but I could be wrong.
I know how that is, at least in regular draft, it goes that way, but anyway, we'll see here as Adnan definitely in the lead, gets that big balloon connection a minute ago, and as you pointed out, AC, it seems like these Mother Witches, Flying Machines, Zappies, what have you, Fireball Bait, are having a lot of success for Adnan. There's just no way for Ttone to get on top of all of them.
Yeah, and here comes an actual, real difficult push right now. If he gets the snowball on top of the Phoenix, we could have seen the tower go all the way down, but that's not going to be the case, so it's just going to be a reset. I mean, really, for Adnan, he is dominating the board. Every time you go all in on offense with the Loon, with the surviving Mother Witch, Flying Machine, and Ttone has nothing because he cannot get past the Zappies, he cannot get past the low Goblin Cage or the high Goblin Cage. Adnan just has way too many.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Ttone kind of did like what you maybe think you're supposed to do when you draft, triple draft. When you look at it, you're like, oh, he's got, you know, some good pressure cards. He's got a win condition. He's got the guards, which are great to bait out spells or maybe survive through a small spell. You know, he's got a lot of the things going on that you need. And there's the big spell. That makes a lot of sense why the Earthquake hasn't been coming out. And then Adnan on the other side of it, it just feels like he has a lot more synergy in his deck. You know, you've got that balloon that can get behind the brawler. Those goblins are so strong right now, and of course having two great spells. And also you have a like almost a gimmick card, right? The Flying Machine or the Mother Witch. Those are both so hard to get on top of if you don't have a correct response. And as you can see there, Adnan just knows, like, look, man, we can do this as long as you want. I'm going to overwhelm you eventually. Easy game one win.
And you just have to assume that Adnan recognized early on. I would be shocked if within the first 3 drafts it didn't show the spells, because the way his deck was set up, it's very likely his opponent had to choose between Earthquake, Freeze, and Rock, and
Yeah.
that's why he went Flying Machine, Mother Witch, Zap, because it was clear that he knew his opponent didn't have an answer for those 3 cards.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other part of it, right? You're sitting there and you're able to look at what your opponent's options are. Obviously, you don't know what card they pull, but when you're a pretty good player and you put yourself in that position, just like you said, if you get Freeze, Rocket, and Earthquake in your first or second draw, you're going to go with Earthquake. It's one of the best spells in the game. And then if you're an opponent and you're able to think through that, which is, again, this is why Triple Draft is so fascinating. It's why they tried it in CRL East. I think in general it ended up being mildly successful. I think that the best players in the world were still able to kind of use their analysis to pick apart reasons why. Well, look, triple draft isn't truly competitively viable because, you know, if I get this and they get this, then it's just 100%, you know, 100-0 matchup.
Right.
Obviously, for people like me, that isn't something that happens as often. And that's kind of what I thought about when you looked at that game. It really did feel like Ttone was trying to cover all of his bases. He's like, look, I have air defense, I have ground defense, I have a win condition, but there just wasn't the synergy. Whereas Adnan was able to exploit, and then, like you said, just that one snowball coming in, giving it that space for the balloon to come in, that's huge synergy. Whereas, like, you look on the other side with Ttone, there wasn't like a heal spirit to go with the ram. There wasn't a good spell to take, you know, the Goblin Cage is one of the best buildings because you get to play it at the last second, so the Earthquake is useless, and then that Brawler deals with those you know, the deals with the Battle Ram Barbarians perfectly. So it was just all good for Adnan.
Yeah. I kind of liked how he played his Goblin Cage. He never really tried to place it in the middle. It was just always on top. It was before the charge. It was to stop the Bandit from getting a charge onto the Zappies in the middle. He did a lot of things with the Goblin Cage that most players make adjustments through, but he just used that. Like, that was the way he was going to play the Goblin Cage.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that he recognized was just like, if the Goblin Cage is out of cycle when a Battle Ram comes down, that's really the only way I can lose this game. So again, it's the thing I do love about, you know, Triple Draft is it's about the macro understanding of the game and matchups, and then the micro interactions with cards that you don't play a ton. And those two things combined make for a really cool format. But I do understand why in CRL players and coaches wanted just a little bit more control of their fates. Ttone has a great deck so far. I mean, a lot of pieces working together. This is a real deck as of right now, and then we see the Dark Goblin in a bad placement, and yeah, that's tough.
Yeah, I mean, just that one small mistake makes the tower all the way down to 2016. And also, I mean, yes, the Elixir management is fine for both players, but you should be up a lot more. It's all because of one misclick, one misplaced tile, and tower all the way down to 8.
Upcoming events here for Royale Masters. I was able to get a breakdown of this since I just can't read, apparently. But obviously, Wednesday the 28th is our King of the Hill event. It has nothing to do with this specific event, but we have had a couple of King of the Hill tournaments going on already. And then, as AC said, next weekend, Friday and Saturday, will be the Heist and Sudden Death in opposite order. Friday will be Sudden Death, Saturday will be Heist. And then Sunday will be our championship. So make sure you guys write that all down in your calendars, because we definitely all have calendars that we write in still.
I have a calendar on my wall right now that I just looked at. The last time I touched it, it was July 2022.
You want to hear the most boomer thing that I do in my life?
Of course.
It's pretty good. I have a calendar, and I write down in the hallway. It's like a physical calendar I write in pen on, and my girlfriend and I, we both use it, so it's like, you know, it's a good place where both of our schedules are, but I write things down on there, and then I take a picture of it so that I have it with me when I go places. And I even was embarrassed just saying that, like, getting the words "take a picture of a calendar" out of my mouth is really tough.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad.
Hey man, if you want to come over and hang out sometime, I could show it to you.
How you doing, fellow kids?
So right now, Ttone, again, I mean, it's like on paper, he's got a great deck. He's got a Dark Goblin, you know, it's a good bait card, but his opponent has arrows. The Rascals should be tough to deal with. He's got a Fire Spirit that is misplaced, so the Goblins get on top of the tower. And he's got Mortar, so really what more could you ask for? But he just does not have a good way to get damage on tower at the moment.
Yeah, I think if we had to predict rematch, I would have said it, Trainer Adnan. There's something about his gameplay that translates so well to this kind of mode, where I just always assume he's going to have one of the biggest advantages just going into the match every single time. Yes, Muhammad Light is going to be the favorite, but other than Muhammad Light, there's something about his gameplay that really translates well.
Well, it's so, again, it's so fascinating because it looks like he's like practice Triple Draft, right? He's got cards that do all the things that you need in terms of controlling the board. You've got a stun, you've got a building, you've got air defense, you've got a pushback with your fireball, you've got arrows as your great small spell. He's got all those things. And then you talk about the synergy behind it. It's really just that Firecracker. Because of the drill and the way the Firecracker works, you can pair that Firecracker with a bandit, you can pair it with a drill, and a lot of times you'll get some good splash damage on tower. And then, you know, I think in terms of like having a good cheap card, he had skeletons in game one. I mean, excuse me, goblins in game one, skeletons in game two. And he's getting a lot of value out of those 1 and 2 elixir cards.
Right here, 44 seconds left. Cycling the arrows on top of the tower, taking the cannon cart out completely, well, almost completely. 36 seconds left. I mean, I like what Ttone's doing, trying to do something, but it's just so difficult to get past Trainer Adnan's defense. He was on one side, Firecracker on the other. This is going to be the push of all pushes, though. This is where he has to win, and it's just not going to be the case. That is clean defense, like always, for Adnan.
And Adnan knows it. He's like, that was your only shot. That was your biggest shot, and that's what you gave me. 2 cannon carts at the bridge with a Dark Goblin, a nice pile up there, a stop with the barbs, and a perfect fireball from Adnan. No same defense there. Fireball the king. Let's go. Easy dubs. He always does throw out a little bit of BM, right?
Adnan always enjoying himself with the clean 2-0 victory. Very, very clean set overall. There's not a lot to take away in terms of negatives for him. The drafting was stellar. The gameplay was really solid. I mean, just no mistakes whatsoever from start to finish. Full 6 minutes every single time that, like, one of his games started.
Yeah, I mean, we look here, game number 1, Snowball, Fireball, right? Great 2 spells there. The Snowball even better because you're running either Hog Rider or Balloon, right? Well, he's running Balloon. And then you look at the bait, like you were talking about, AC. Mother Witch, Zappies, and Flying Machine. They're all there. They're all annoying to deal with, and they all create so much pressure. Or again, we talked about the Mother Witch defense in CRL, like how good that defense really is when you need her to spawn those piggies. And of course the cage, right? He's got a great building there, good counter pressure. And then you go to game number 2, we just talked about it, the pressure that he was able to create with the bandit plus the firecracker plus the drill, and then really everything else, it was a lot of control. Maybe that's what it's all about. Right, you look at the barbs and the Ewiz and the Skellies, and then you look in game number 1 at the Zappies and the Mother Witch and the Goblins. That's a lot of great map control with some of the better cards in the game.
Yes. So what was his win condition in game number 1?
Balloon.
Balloon. So it just looks like, I mean, it really could just be, hey, I want to control the match, and then I need a win condition that can just make it to the tower. So then the loons and the drills and the hogs and the royal hogs, like those could be the best win conditions. And it wouldn't shock me if players, I mean, just like yesterday, if the meta evolves and players start recognizing, hey, if these are my 3 win conditions, it has to be either A or B. Like C should never be an option.
Yeah, I mean, that is a good point that you make. You know, tower-seeking win conditions that are more guaranteed. I mean, the balloon is obviously tough, but you still get the death damage, even if you don't get the drop damage, you know. And then you talk about the drill. The drill is one of the most, obviously, annoying win conditions to deal with, especially double and triple, because he can keep getting on tower. Something like a miner, because, you know, on the other side of it, you look at our friend in Ttone. His win conditions were not really, I mean, you do have a Tower Seeker in the Battle Ram, but we all know it's one of the worst Tower Seekers in the game. It's really easy to stop, you know, and then the Barbarians are pretty easy to control. And then in game number 2, again, you're looking at basically the only thing he got was like poison damage. That mortar, while it is obviously a tower-seeking unit, it's also your building. It's your defensive building. So I think he was trying to abuse the cannon cart, but his opponent, again, with the barbs, like barbs, I think I've seen people tweet it in the past about like how barbs are kind of broken in draft mode. I don't know if that's true or not, but at least in this matchup, it ended up being absolutely great. And then also, Adnan went with Fireball in both games. I think that pushback is huge, right?
Yeah.
And the instant damage.
Yeah. The Fireball has to be, I mean, because all the spells are just so awkward in this game mode where, like, Freeze can be a good card, but it feels like Earthquake is never the right answer, and then Lightning is never the right answer. So many decks, I mean, you just have so many options where as soon as you see your opponent's spells, you just base everything off that. So you just want those Fireballs, those poisons, the snowball and arrows. You want big, I mean, you just want consistent okay damage. You never want the biggest spells, and you never really want the awkward spells.
Yeah, the universal damage, I think, is kind of what you're talking about, right? Because those other spells that you're mentioning in Lightning, I mean, we all know how difficult Lightning can be to thread the needle, and if your opponent recognizes it early, they can really just pile up at the bridge, you know? And then you talk about Earthquake, and you're completely ignoring any troops in the skies, whereas the other spells that we're talking about, you're hitting everything on the board in that specific spot. And I know that, again, that seems like such an obvious, like, well, duh, that's what spells do. But when you're playing triple draft, you have to kind of think about it to that next level. And you're like, well, if I don't have a great response for an air unit, maybe I just need a spell that can deal with it. So here we go. Game number 1 in match number 2 here. Felix at the top of your screen, Agony King at the bottom, and drill back out. And Felix goes, you know what? I learned my lesson from that first set. I'm going to grab Valkyrie. She seems like she could do a good job here.
Felix so far using the Valk, Spear Goblins, and Skeletons, going a fairly quick cycle. And Felix also going to be running the Lightning So as soon as we say a bunch of negative things, he
Yeah.
decides to flip the script while also having such a quick cycle so far. So right now, I mean, the first 4 cards, it just shows that Felix has the advantage. I mean, we're obviously going to see the rest of the deck from Agony King. But I mean, those are 4 very difficult cards to see if you're Agony.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very curious to see here what Agony King is going to do defensively. Now we're seeing that the drill is out of cycle, so the E-Giant is on the board. Great call there. And of course, yeah, Cannon Cart has to come out. Ideally would be able to get back around to Dark Goblin, but we'll see. That has, you know, Dark Goblin was obviously just played. And a Fisherman. Okay, Agony King sets himself up for a very good matchup.
Yeah, there you go. Agony King immediately flipping it once again. Felix, I mean, without NATO, Cannon Cart, or without NATO, E-Giant always gets super weird. And right there, Cannon Cart onto the tower, getting it down to 2096. Great stuff for Agony King.
Yeah, that's a really good point that you make there, and that's a really nice lightning from Felix, maybe narrowing that gap just a bit, but Agony King goes, okay, you don't have a ton of Elixir, let me see what I can get out of it. But yeah, not having NATO paired with E-Giant is very, very interesting, and it's a great point that you make because it's something that you almost forget because you only see E-Giant with NATO, but we've talked about this before. I don't remember why we've talked about this before, because drafting doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Maybe it's just people making decks without it. Maybe it's people like playing Golem without NATO at one point. But E-Giant without NATO, going to be really, really tough. That Dark Goblin is going to cause a lot of problems.
That's right, and I mean, we see it with the spells. He only has the Snowball Lightning, so those, oh my goodness, this could be a beautiful pre-lock.
Yeah.
Oh my, the pre-lock followed by the pre-Ice Spirit. It didn't work at all, but at the same time, that was gorgeous to see right there. Agony King making all the right potential plays, it just not working out entirely.
Yeah, still gets a good amount of damage out of it, and yeah, I really love that. That was really great because, you know, he sends the drill to behind the tower so that the E-Giant walks behind, and then he knows his opponent has to respond. Well, his opponent really only has, like, cheap baity cards, so the pre-Ice Spirit for the Spear Goblins and then the Skellies, so that's really good decision-making by Agony King. I know what you're saying, AC. He didn't get a lot out of it, but the thought process shows he's ready to go.
And right here, 145 left, getting aggressive with another drill, but this time it is in the back. Some of the goblins are going to make it to the tower.
Wow.
And right there,
and
there's the wing
Magic
condition.
Archer.
I had been waiting the entire time to see what one of his actual wing conditions were going to be because, I mean, we've seen it every single time. You can't just use drill or wall breakers or skeleton barrel. You need to pair it with another wing condition. And finally, he places it on.
Yeah, and that Magic Archer not able to quite steal the game. A heads-up lightning comes in from Felix. There's the Fish Boy. I was going to say, a naked E-Giant at the bridge when you know your opponent has Fisherman. A little bit surprising there. I was going to see maybe if he tried to body block up high, but that's just a next-level play you got to make.
Right there, 488. Still, I mean, there you go. He's had Fireball this entire time. Has not found a good place to use it, though. This is going to be one last defense. That's all he needs. Drill going in. Can he get the offensive pressure he needs?
Fireball in. Yeah, nice cycle there at the end. Really well played there by Agony King. Yeah, I mean, Felix, I feel like, has to give it to him. Great pressure at the bridge. Made his opponent play pretty uncomfortable the whole time. It felt like, you know, it was a pretty even match for a while there, and then Agony King just started to outplay his opponent just by a little bit, which makes sense. I mean, I've seen Felix's name in the space. I've definitely, I mean, I knew Agony King's win condition, right? That familiarity just lets you maybe know maybe the experience of the two competitors, and we'll see. Obviously, it's only game number one. Felix can still turn things around. But I really liked what I saw out of Agony King there. At the very end, I will say I started to get a little bit of those, like, rookie yips where you're like, is he getting a little too aggressive? But I feel like he had it perfectly calculated.
Yeah. And I think, okay, so Agony King alongside trainer Adnan, there's something about playing Giant Sparky where there's a lot of decisions that other players don't have to really think about when they play Clash Royale. And I feel like the Giant Sparky Tornado decks are going to help him with these crazy concoctions. I mean, that's why I love Triple Draft so much, because there's so many cards that you are using where you would just never think about it before. And that's why he's not going to make the mistake of going E-Giant without NATO. and that's why he's setting up his deck in a specific way. I mean, using Fireball at the very end and the Magic Archer at the very end instead of playing it, it really felt like he was just kind of waiting until he felt it was time to strike. And a lot of other players wouldn't have made that choice.
Yeah, that's a really cool point that you make, and I'm gonna expand on it a little bit as we hop into game, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. But first thing is those Goblin Giant or Sparky decks in general, they kind of use cards that aren't popular in the meta. You know, like when they weren't popular, like, you know, Mini P.E.K.K.A. and Minions before they got buffed, and, you know, Heal Spirit. Like, in general, there's cards that are maybe just a little bit less popular. And then the other part of it is, I don't know for how many of you guys at home, and for you, AC, you'll be playing against one of those Goblin Giant Sparky players, and they'll send in one push, you know, Sparky in the back, Goblin Giant at the bridge, feel out the way you defend, and then the next push, it'll be Goblin Giant at the bridge, behind a Sparky that's coming down the lane, and then a Mini P.E.K.K.A. behind that, and then bats on top of that, because they looked at how you defended, and they know, just like what you're talking about, they don't show their hand until they think they can, like, win in one push. And I felt like that's a similar thing we saw with Agony King.
Yeah, that's exactly correct. And they've done that to me 1,000 times where I don't make the adjustments, but they do. And it's over just like that.
Yeah, that's probably a much more simple way to put it than I did, but that's truly it. The adjustments from those players are really heads up. They have to happen quickly. And here we go. Game number 2, you see Felix already rolling his eyes with the Goblin there because he sees that Agony King has Earthquake, which is pretty annoying when you have something like Furnace, but also Furnace is pretty annoying, so I don't know who I feel worse for.
Neither of them is the answer. Agony King using the Mother Witch so far, I feel like Mother Witch might have had a 100% win rate, but it also could have just lost the last game. Not totally sure with that, but Mother Witch always seems to be like the right answer in these kind of decks. And Agony King, I mean, he does have Earthquake, so he doesn't have the Fireball or Poison. But overall, Agony King deck really solid. Just quick cycle. And again, I mean, I feel like Goblin Cage might be the best tower in this game mode. It feels like it'll get value every single time.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean in terms of like, well, do I pick between Cannon or Tesla or whatever? Maybe Goblin Cage is the secret kind of X factor here today as we see Earthquake getting good value on top of that Furnace. Zappies being split. Zappies, Mother Witch, right? 2 more very annoying cards to deal with. Phoenix, a very strong card in the game. Felix going back to Lightning 2 games in a row. A little surprising there. You know, we kind of talked about how Lightning maybe isn't the choice, but Felix doesn't agree with us as some great defense turned into offense here from Agony King.
And right here, Agony King getting very aggressive. He thinks that that is the best method right there. Mother Witch will be able to get another shot off, and Bowler, wow. I mean, Bowler's going to lose a lot of his health.
Yeah, that Bowler did work for Felix.
Yeah. 2 seconds left. Clean defense once again from Agony King. And I mean, I liked Agony's King. I liked his push going in with the Goblin Giant, but Felix just defended it so beautifully.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that kind of becomes scary if you're Agony King, because you're just like, well, I feel like I had a great counter push. I had a lot of my support cards there, and there we go. Yeah, he switches lanes. Because if I just sent that push in, AC, and I get nothing out of it, I would not be feeling too hot about continuing to do the same thing over and over.
Yeah, I really don't know what he's supposed to even do at this point. I mean, every time he plays the Phoenix in the back by itself, he's going to get lightninged off, so he can't do that. And then Zappies don't really work when they're placed in the back. So the Bowler is going to be able to provide so much value. So every single option he has, Felix just has the counter.
Yeah, and that Bowler just does great work for those pigs. I mean, again, once again, massive pile up there on the left-hand side. Agony King throwing everything he has at the wall, and you know, this is one of those situations in Triple Draft where you're just super frustrated because your opponent has really drawn up a perfect strategy to beat you.
50 seconds left. We are now in triple Elixir, and I mean, we're seeing the Goblin Giant placed at the bridge. Once again, I don't think it's going to make it to the tower, because regardless of how much offense he has, he was plus Bowler plus guards will never let anything.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if this is like a real play, but I almost want to see him go Goblin Giant at the bridge after a defense opposite lane, and then maybe a Phoenix over the middle with a pre-Earthquake, like all of those things coming together looking for the Furnace. because this pile up in the same lane is just not going to do it. You've got the slow there from the Ewiz combined with that bowler, and it's just perfect. And then yeah, pre-lightning comes in looking for the cage. Like you said, AC, lightning came down every single time on top of that Phoenix that was cycled in the back. That's actually a thing I kind of want to zero in on. We kept seeing that Phoenix cycled in the back, and then the lightning would come out on top of it, and it really felt like Agony King, it wasn't like he didn't know the lightning was there, and it wasn't like he didn't know the lightning was going to get pulled, so it felt like he was kind of baiting out the lightning. Because I've done that sometimes where you're like, all right, I know they have a big spell. I know I'm going to give them value here, but if they play it, then that means I can do X, right? Like, I'm going to cycle my Musketeer behind tower, and they're going to rocket it, but now I know that they're down 2 Elixir, and I can punish in the opposite lane, right? It didn't feel like there was any kind of thought process behind that Phoenix getting... It felt like every time the Phoenix would get lightning off the board, it was like, all right, let's pile up at the bridge, and then maybe my Mother Witch can make something happen? I don't know. What do you think happened there?
I think, okay, so I really agree with your observation with that there was no purpose to it. I think it was trying to have a purpose to it, and it just didn't matter. I really think the entire game can get summed up with one player has bowler. And so the bowler plus Ewiz. Oh, okay, so it's bowler versus Earthquake. And so the bowler was really, really strong, yes. But Earthquake, it just did nothing on offense. He was always stayed alive. The guards were always powerful. The bowler was allowed to stay in the middle. So I think it's those two cards that you really have to pinpoint in that game.
Yeah, you know, and then to kind of talk about the mind games that come behind picking in triple draft, you know, you look at the cards that were picked by Bulls Felix, and they're pretty cool. Like, you talk about archers and guards, they're really tough to get on top of if you don't have the correct spell. Bowler, one of those weird broken cards in the game that when it matches up perfectly, it does. And then honestly, that Furnace was just enough. That Furnace was just enough to either keep baiting out Earthquakes or just as a building to pull units to the center. So really great draw there by Phoenix in game number 2. Excuse me, Felix in game number 2. As he was taking care of Agony King's Phoenix with the lightning. I don't know, I'm trying to land that, stick that landing. As we hop into game number 3 here, Felix going fast. Agony King looking like he could go just a bit heavier, seeing 9 Elixir, 10 Elixir already in 3 cards.
And so this is where it gets really... Okay, first of all, very cool from Agony King to be able to use Giant Heal Spirit, which is literally what the man is known for. And he's still able to pull that off. But then the other thing you have to look at is that Bulls Felix used Wall Break. And with triple draft, there are a few win conditions that aren't really win conditions. Wall Breakers fall into that. You use the Mega Knight, that's going to be your win condition of the deck.
Right.
And so Wall Breakers plus Poison, that's going to be his only way to damage the tower. If Agony King does not give up that much damage before triple Elixir, Agony King should be able to win just off the fact that he had to choose Wall Breakers as his win.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really cool thing that you point out, because I was doing a little bit of digging this morning trying to figure out exactly where it was. And of course, our guys, Alpi and SML, they do a great job over at Royale API. I was able to find a post from 3 years ago on Clash Royale Reddit. And exactly what you're talking about, AC, is actually a point of debate in the chat, right? There's things like, well, why is Flying Machine in cheap anti-air when it costs 4 Elixir, when there's other 4 Elixir cards in anti-air? And then you look at things like win cons. People are saying, why is Mega Knight a win condition? And Wall Breakers is not a strong enough win condition when you have other things in there like Balloon and Golem and Graveyard, you know? So it's cool because, you know, you were a pro back then. These are things that I think are probably tucked away in the back of your mind that you kind of even forget that you know that other people don't. But yeah, having to kind of, you only get one option for a strong win con usually in triple draft, and Wall Breakers being it, we all know how much Wall Breakers can struggle in triple and double Elixir. So thanks for pointing that out, AC.
Yeah, no problem. And you're exactly... I forgot exactly how you said it, but it was just locked away in the back of my mind. And I remembered that Wall Breakers were a win con. So kind of just enjoyable for me. I'm getting a lot of flashbacks by commentating the game.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is like... These things were introduced when you were at the height of your Clash Royale career. So here we go. Agony King, nice Nado there to pull that Executioner in, get right on top, to get that Prince right on top of her. And then the other thing, or him, I don't know why I keep saying her. The other thing you have to think about are those Goblins. There they are. They come down That's going to be like the biggest thing here for Agony King is those goblins get so much value. If you can't get them with the fireball and hit the Tesla, which is going to be pretty difficult to pull off time and time again, he might just be finding himself between a rock and a hard place, just like he did in game number 2. That's the thing with Giant, right? Like, how often is Giant played as a win condition? It's very rarely. It's just Giant double Prince. Otherwise, it's Giant Graveyard, Giant Sparky, Goblin Giant Sparky. It's pretty rare that you have Giant with a deck like this, and it feels like Agony King is struggling to find the synergy.
Finally, yeah, finally finding a little bit of synergy, but I really just don't think that's going to matter. He's going to be able to place Goblins if he chooses to do so. Wall breakers get the aggro of the Prince, and I mean, his defenses are just so strong, and he's gotten the damage. Yes, wall breakers aren't the best win condition, but when your opponent has a deck like this, which can never hit the tower, we are only looking for Poison Cycle and oh, I gotta relax because this could be the opposite push.
What a great NATO there. Dark Goblin gets pulled away, and the only thing that's on top of the tower is the Baby Dragon. You said it yesterday, AC. Not a lot of DPS, but enough. And right now, Agony King setting up a perfect send. Another perfect heal spirit comes in, and this might be it for Felix.
Yeah, he just cannot defend this onslaught of attack from Agony King. Baby Dragon plus Mega Minion taking out the Valkyrie as well. Heal Spirit at the bridge. This is 400 HP separating the two, but 4 troops on the board, and Felix has nothing.
Yeah, that's it. And Felix knows it. He's like, dude, there was no reason for you to break through. And Agony King gets a great, maybe 3 heal spirits that come in those final moments to set up a big elixir deficit by his opponent. And just the overwhelm. Awesome.
Well, that's how it is with Agony King with his giant Sparky heal spirit deck. He'll stop him every single time. It's that one heal spirit that allows the Sparky to get that shot, or the one heal spirit that allows the giant, which has, it looks like it has 4 HP, but then it gets 4 shots on tower. So, I mean, the heal spirit can do a lot of great things that you just don't get how it was able to pull that off.
Yeah, I loved, like, it's so cool when you kind of, Rich and I always say, like, when the sharks smell blood in the water, right? You saw Agony King, he gets that first Giant Prince push that goes in, Heal Spirit lands, it does okay, but the Prince started to get really good value, right? And then what happened over and over was just, I feel like the way when you place the Dark Goblin, there is a way to make it just a little bit safer, but it just wasn't the case. That Dark Goblin kept getting NATO'd in over and over, and then, you know, you called it out yesterday, that Baby Dragon ended up being such a massive card to deal with. It has so much HP, it's locked on the tower. You start to see Felix overspend on getting rid of that Baby Dragon. So what does Agony King? He just doubles down. Second Prince comes down, second Giant up front, gets another Heal Spirit in, and that's when you're playing his game, right? You talked about it. That's what he does on ladder. That's what he does with his comfort deck. And once he's doing that, tough stuff. I mean, I don't think there's many people that could have played through that matchup, and he gets like 3 perfect heal spirits.
Yeah, I've been thinking about the match for the last 30 seconds, and just the way, because throughout the match, I was thinking like, oh man, he's given up a lot of damage. That's 2 wall breaker shots. He's not even trying to just stop 1. He allowed 2 of them, and so I was thinking, oh, maybe that's a little bit too much damage, blah, blah, blah. But really, he was just waiting for it to get heavy into double elixir or early on into triple elixir, because it was clear he knew that the heal spirit would be the MVP of the match. Us mortals who don't play it every single day weren't able to understand that, and so I'd like to apologize to Agony King for that. That was brilliant.
I know, I was just gonna say, like, it's crazy when you watch someone use a card that you're like mediocre with at best, and they're like one of the best in the world, and you're like, holy crap, like, look at what you can actually do with this card. I think NATO is the one for me, because there are so many decks that use Tornado, and there's so many pros that are really good with NATO. So even like a B tier pro will do stuff with NATO where I'm like, whoa, that was crazy. It doesn't really happen with Heal Spirit. There's like 3 people in the world who are great with Heal Spirit enough at like a competitive level, and to watch the timing of those, because not only do you have to know the timing perfectly, you have to know where your opponent's spells are at, and then also you want that heal spirit to be placed in the perfect spot to get the most value, to get on top of the most troops. All those things combined, I think it was maybe the second heal spirit, it jumped on top of like a 1 HP unit, but it gave the baby dragon, the giant, the prince, all of that, gave it a whole new life. And yeah, really cool stuff there. So Agony King stays alive, moves on. And Damp goes up against the Pharaoh, the king, the goat of Clash Royale. Call him what you will. It's Momo.
Good luck coming out from Momo. Good luck coming out from Damp. So Damp's win condition is going to be the Mortar. And on the flip side, Muhammad Light, I mean, he chose the right card so far. The Cannon card will be able to lock up the Mortar very, very nicely throughout this entire match.
I feel like Muhammad Light said good luck to Damp, and then Damp said good luck to himself.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw that too. It was like, yeah.
I don't know how we were able to tell that that's what he was doing, but we both felt it. So, yeah, good luck to you as well. Damp, can you be the man that beats Muhammad Light? I think he lost 1 game in the qualifiers today. So, that might be true, as this Baby Dragon tanking for this RG. And Minion Horde does a good job cleaning up, but if I'm Damp, I don't feel great about that, knowing that my opponent has Baby Dragon and Phoenix.
Yeah, but on the other end, if your opponent is going to use the Baby Dragon, it could be likely that they don't have the right spells for that. And right there, we see the Barbell coming out from Muhammad Light. So the Baby Dragon does imply that you don't have a lot of AoE, a lot of splash. And so the Minion Horde is kind of a very cool choice. See, Minion Horde is always just a really cool choice in Triple.
Yeah, I actually was really happy when Minion Horde kind of got some life breathed back into it maybe a month or 2 ago. Wow. Momo decides to go Cannon instead of Cannon Cart. And his opponent is ready for it. Maybe overspending just a hair is Damp on that, but no harm, no foul. Well, that's not entirely true. Muhammad Light gets a Baby Dragon connection on the opposite side of the board, which again is kind of something that I've talked about a lot lately, which is just like, I don't understand how he can just get, like, he always plays a perfect defense on a side that it feels like maybe he got caught looking, and then he ends up with a damage lead on the opposite end of the board. But I mean, that's why he's the best. So Damp feeling pretty good. He's got a Earthquake for that cannon. He seems like he's creating some good pressure. He's barely behind by a bit.
Right there, clean defense once again. So Damp in, yeah, a decent enough position. But as the game goes along, it's going to be really awkward for him to get a lot of damage. And Muhammad Light just using this time to be able to go RG opposite lane. Should be able to get one shot. That's absolutely the case. Barbell to take back one of the barbs. That required such impeccable timing. He didn't have to worry about the first one, but the second one had to crawl back. Great stuff right there.
Oh, and he's got the fireball for the Horde. So all things, this is like when you get the flop and then the river and you feel like you're doing well, and then all of a sudden the river comes down and your opponent just got like a royal flush or something. Muhammad Light has slowly started to reveal his cards, and he has every answer for his opponent, right? It started off with the Cannon Cart for the Mortar. All Mortar players hate that happening, although we are going to see a Mortar connection right here. Good job there by Damp. And then you see the fireball. You know, we've talked so much about how that Minion Horde can be such an X factor. Fireball, as you can see right there, boom, takes it right off the board. We'll see how Mo can turn this into a real push.
This Baby Dragon following it really nicely because it's going to make it so that Damp has to really struggle with this defense. And the Baby Dragon,
there's nothing there.
DPS, it's not that high, but the Baby Dragon will still win it.
Dude, I cannot get over Muhammad Light and the way he plays this game. I mean, I feel like what he did there was exactly everything that he wanted to do. He goes Royal Giant right into the Mortar to bait out the Minion Horde. Fireball to take care of the Minion Horde. Now the Baby Dragon doesn't need to be used for that. Now the Baby Dragon can do what? Oh, well, he baits out his opponent's ground cards. So now the Baby Dragon just goes right on through. Yeah, just like you're doing. Right on through to the Spear Goblins. And then he wins a game with a Dark Prince Baby Dragon push? Like, what? I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I love it too. I'm getting sick of learning though. Like there's so many things that Muhammad Light teaches me. Like, dude, I just want to relax, and it's really starting to get to me. I'm getting headaches with that conversation.
Well, yeah. we're supposed to be the ones that are like, oh, and this is most likely what he'll do next, and it makes us look smart. But Mohamed Light just always innovating, always doing things that really, truly, we always like. I feel like we throw away this, like, just in general, we throw around this term like too lightly just in life. He's like, oh, they're always thinking like 2-3 steps ahead. I live my life thinking 2-3 steps ahead. You know, you know that guy. Yeah. But Mohamed Light, when he plays the game, he's guy. Like, you are so, like, AC, you don't have your wallet. You look at Mohamed Light play the game, and he like takes in all this stuff, and then he's like a little computer processing, like, all right, these are the strengths, these are the weaknesses, this is how I can bait out him to make a mistake. And I don't know, I just like, never in my mind would I have ever thought, and I wonder how many other pros would have thought like, all right, I need to use my Royal Giant to bait out a minion horde, and I need to win this game with a Dark Prince Baby Dragon push. And that's exactly what he did, because I think it was what, like a bomber or something that came down, and that was like Mo, I have to look. There was basically a point where he goes, you don't have any more ground cards, right? Like there's nothing else for you to play on the ground other than your elite barbarians, but I know you don't have the elixir for it because you just played your Valkyrie and you just played your bomber, your mortar was up high, and you have to play your spear goblins by the princess tower. So that's all that literally is happening in like a split second for Mo in a deck that clearly isn't a real deck because he just made it in triple draft and then he abuses it. So cool stuff there. That's only game one. But Damp probably going, what just happened? All right, don't worry about it. Let's go to game two.
But he has 4 letters in his name, so I just don't know how he lost.
I know. I mean, you got a really good theory going with that.
Damp needs to win game 2 for my theory to stay alive. Skeleton Barrel and Firecracker, the first 2 cards shown from him. And a bowler placed, I mean, it looks like it was to attempt to predict the Magic Archer, but at the same time, it didn't really do much in terms of value.
So perfect timing and placement there on, I like, again, I'm like, how is he going to get out of this? Well, he ends up getting the damage lead. Somehow, he has untouched towers, and he will not need to play anything to defend this Lumberjack. Yeah, that was awesome. I would have probably lost the game on that one push. He goes guards to surround the bowler. It's enough to distract the Lumberjack and the bowler. He fireballs on top of the Goblin Barrel, and then he uses wall breakers to kite the very healthy Lumberjack away, and then a Tesla to distract the Skeleton Barrel that comes right back down. Damp literally threw everything he had at Mohamed Light, and he got rage damage out of it.
That's damage. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, hey, you're right. I mean, you're not wrong there.
Cannon card coming out from Mohamed Light so far. Mohamed Light has shown the Princess and the Wall Breakers as the 2 potential, actually, and the Magic Archer as potential win cons. So I actually love the synergy. When you have the Wall Breaker and you know you need to get more damage, you're being able to go Princess at the bridge is going to be powerful alongside just the Magic Archer at the bridge, trying to get 2, 3, 4 shots just one time. That's all you need.
Yeah, that Magic Archer definitely going to be a threat when you look at what Damp has. He's going to have to always NATO it up high if it gets placed at the bridge. Obviously, when it's placed behind tower, you go poison. But that's kind of what you were just talking about, AC. He goes Magic Archer behind, Princess at the bridge, and he gets damage out of it. Guards connect just because. And Mohamed Light not back to arrows, but happy to pull the trigger on the Fireball plus Tesla. And look at that, man. I mean, like, it's not fair.
Yeah, 20 seconds left. Cannon card placed and tower down. Damp did what he could, but just no match for Mohamed Light. Just like the thousands.
Yeah, I can't get over that defense still. Like, technically he was down Elixir, it felt like, because he played the Magic Archer at the bridge, right? And he gets a bowler out of it. And I think the Firecracker stayed alive, right? So technically you're down. And then, I don't know. Yeah, that was pretty crazy, man. That was absolutely exactly what you expect, but still kind of breathtaking gameplay as Mohamed Light moves on again, as he does in every bracket, whether it's ESL, CRL, Triple Draft, Triple Elixir. He's still moving on through. And we have one more match here in our first round of quarterfinals, if you will, between another 4-letter player, AC, and Chris. You know, might be able to push that theory back to even. But he does have a tough ask in front of that with Tribe's Wallace. Wallace barely missed the triple Elixir competition yesterday, being in that top 8, but he's here today in triple draft. What do you want to talk about, man? You want to talk about your day? You want to talk about your weekend? You want to talk about Muhammad Light some more? You want to talk about the upcoming match? I mean, there's so many things up in the air for us.
You know, I read 32 pages of a book in the past 3 days, and
wow.
I just want to give a shout out to that. Shout out to reading. That's the. I don't even want to talk about this for more than 20 seconds, but I'm glad to put in the work when it comes to books.
I think you saying that you read 32 pages in the last few days and me taking pictures of my calendar are probably our 2 most incriminating character traits here. Yeah, they're both pretty rough.
Not
32 pages in a few days. That's great, man. That's like a word an hour. I'm proud of you. So we're about to hop into our next match here between Wallace and Chris. Wallace is kind of like a guy. I mean, it's tough to say. Yeah, maybe I'll use a different example. Wallace and Morton, for instance, are 2 guys that it feel like have been very quiet this year, even though I know they've been playing a lot. I don't know what it is. I don't know if they just need to find that next level. I don't know if they're adapting to the meta or if they just plan on like maybe making it to Worlds through the leaderboard and they're just chilling. But 2 like of the best players in the world that I feel like have been pretty quiet in 2023. I don't even know why I brought Morton into this. I'm sorry, Morton. It's just, it's just another player that I feel like should be a little bit more talked about. That's all.
I get you. I get you. Yeah, Wallace, actually, I think I might have him as just like a dark horse. I mean, because I think he's 39th on the CRL leaderboard. I want to say it's number 39. And he's, I mean, he was a top 5 player in the world. And it's not like his skill just dropped off the face of the earth. So it's shocking that he hasn't done better. And this could actually be like a, I mean, I know it's not a regular game mode, but he could actually just end up winning this. And that could give him the confidence to start winning everything. Like, this actually could be a turning point in his career potentially. I don't want to put all this pressure on this one match, but we could start to see him do well if he does well today.
I don't want to put a lot of pressure on it, but this could be the most important 5 to 15 minutes of his whole life. We'll see. We'll find out as Wallace comes out with a good response to the Royal Hogs with the bomb tower. And yeah, I was going to say, and Chris probably already wondering, like, what am I going to do? He's got poison. He's got Mother Witch for my minions. He's got bomb tower for my Royal Hogs. And I wonder, see, this is part of the conversation where it's like, I wish we were like back in the day where we were just watching replays, because then we could see the cards that they drafted in the moment that they drafted. And you could be like, oh, see, this is like what Wallace's thought process was. Because you like look at what he has and what Chris has, and it seems like at least that Wallace was like looking very carefully at Chris's options and going, this is what I would probably do if I didn't think to that 2nd and 3rd layer. And now he has all the responses that he needs.
Right there, lightning to take off the E-Dragon, and I mean, yeah, I mean, every single card gets picked after the other card, and obviously that's how it is. But I mean, with the completion of your deck, like, you need to be focusing on all the potential. I mean, there's 3 potential outcomes every single time they draft, and so you have to factor all of that in. And so far, Wallace did a great job of factoring that in. It's just whether or not he can get the damage, because he has all these great defenses, but he doesn't have a lot of offense.
Yeah, that's a good point. And you know, another thing that we're talking about is just like the poisons and the arrows versus the, you know, the lightnings and the earthquakes. And it feels like, at least in this moment, Wallace's poison is a very good draw, but that lightning is giving Chris a bit of a damage lead. So we'll see if that theory kind of keeps coming on through as a witch makes its way to the competitive scene. First time we're seeing her in quite some time.
Are we going to see a little bit of aggression right here? Poison down on top of the witch, so not going to go in with the mortar, not actual off push. E-Dragon plus Princess just cleaning up the minions right there. So beautiful interaction for Wallace, and the Ghost won't even make the tower. So just clean defense overall for Wallace right there.
Yeah, the E-Drag combination with the Princess is going to be interesting, and the Mother Witch, right? Like, all those cards are really annoying to deal with, and the Lightning has to be kind of saved for what feels like that E-Dragon, or realistically, you'd probably want to go on top of the bomb tower, but then you've got your opponent with double buildings, and I don't know. It's frustrating, annoying, call it what you will, but it's going to be real hard for Chris to get those piggies on top of the tower.
Right there,
Oh, yeah, and the Valkyrie.
Yeah. The Valk cleans up everything pretty nicely. Unfortunately for Wallace, the Valk is going to be the troop that is targeted, but this is going to be a lot of offensive pressure right here. I mean, Wallace has done a great job of just... I mean, at the beginning, he wasn't getting enough damage with all his pushes, but now it just feels like he's in total control of the Princess throughout. I mean, just the last 2 minutes of Princesses has changed the game. It has allowed him to play slow and have Chris play into him.
Yeah, I mean, these Princesses and the Mother Witches being spread out on either side of the board just make it really frustrating to deal with. And then, of course, you know, the Princess dealing with the Mother Witch not quite, or the Witch not quite as effective, but in the last send that we saw, it was the Mother Witch dealing with the Witch, which is also incredibly annoying if you're Chris. So one Piggy squeezes on through and gets on top of tower. That's actually a big deal at this point. Piggy gets it down, plus the lightning to 1488. 1360, the healthiest tower for, excuse me, the lowest tower here for Chris as a poison comes down and Cannon Cart avoids it. Cannon Cart has to work towards those Princesses. And we see a Witch dropped as well. Maybe Chris thinking that Wallace might double down as we see some split Piggies for the what feels like the first time.
Right there, arrows coming out on defense with the Witches on top of the tower, but the question is, will it get the tower down more? I mean, Chris does not respond to it, and that should be game over. Not even going to use the lightning on top of the tower, so Wallace just didn't really have that much offense, but it was just enough. He got the Princess chip when he needed, he got the poison chip when he needed, and his troops, I mean, it was enough. That's how I would describe that game for him.
Yeah, and 464 remaining with a lightning. I guess Chris probably saw the writing on the wall, but I don't know. It felt like there was at least like a mad dash to give the viewers at home. To, you know, 464 with the lightning, that's very little. You just get a touch from a couple Piggies there, and you're in the driver's seat. But Wallace doing, you know, one thing that you see in these competitions that you see the pros do the best is just like they never start to panic. Ever. Like they're just down, unless they're playing against another pro or against, it's, you know, Mohammed Light or whatever. But like you see there, it was Wallace was just like, I figured out what worked, and if I just keep this distance for 5 minutes, I will end out on top by just a hair. And yeah, I like that. It just came down to annoying cards, right? Princesses and Mother Witches being able to just create pressure, and his opponent just not having a response. Wallace just did a really good job drafting. He just looked at what his opponent had the options to do, and he's like, let me just have every response that I need for it. And then the E-Drag is just like one of the most annoying cards in the game when you don't have a correct way to deal with it, because the E-Drag wasn't even really used as anything other than just like a card to control parts of the board and deal with like the cannons, you know? It was interesting. He never tried to like put it with anything else.
Yeah, it got really weird for him sometimes where the lightning was finally out of cycle, and so he wants to play the E-Dragon, but I mean, it's not going to win against the Witch, and then he'll place it down on the board, and then the Ghost was on the board, so it doesn't even target some of the troops.
Right.
So the E-Dragon, like, somehow got value throughout that match, but it was in an off spot for a lot of it.
So Wallace sends his drill right into a Dark Prince. So as of right now, Chris doing a great job. He goes, great, I got Zap for those spears, and I got Dark Prince for the Goblin drill. Let's just play with these 4 cards and see who wins.
Which, funny enough, he was actually losing on tower damage with that.
Yeah. So Fisherman helps that E-Giant just a few tiles away. A cannon plus a cannon cart going to be pretty annoying with that Fisherman as well. So, I don't know. Maybe Wallace did it again. He goes, I got 2 buildings. 2.5 buildings, if you call the cannon cart a building. A Fisherman as well. And, of course, Spear Goblins, which realistically there is no NATO, so we'll have to be zapped every single time.
Right here, we should be able to see them placed on the map. I am shocked that he put it on top of the tower, though.
Me too.
I thought that was actually going to make it. Tower right there. It's
really interesting because it's like things that are that small kind of, I don't know. They almost make you go, oh, maybe that's why Wallace isn't where he's supposed to be. But then there's also like, oh, maybe he was playing late, last second at the tower, thinking his opponent wouldn't even zap, and then the Spear Goblins might actually get value. Whereas if his opponent is hovering zap over the center of the board, then the the brawler does get to tower. So I don't know.
Yeah. I agree. Because yeah, I don't know. That was an odd interaction right there. 1 minute left in the game. Will the cannon card take itself out? That is absolutely what happened. He was to clean it up and snowball to help out Wallace, but not going to be enough. 48 seconds left, and I mean, both players have not done a lot of damage so far. I mean, and both of them have a 1 card left with no big spell used as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. And there you go. Just as you say that, Wallace's big spell comes out. Earthquake on top of that Goblin Cage, which is nice for him. And then a good clean push coming across the bridge. E-Giant right on top of it. One of the best features of the E-Giant is just blocking at the bridge and dealing with those units. I mean, that splash damage, reflective damage, whatever you want to call it, is really great. And Chris setting up a nice send here. Not a good way to get on top of that Mother Witch or Flying Machine. So he just has to deal with everything as it comes, does Wallace.
Your Goblin's placed directly on top of the Flying Machine. Great zap timing for Chris once again.
Yeah.
And Chris just going to reset. Mother Witch at the left. He was on the right. And with 155 left, I mean, he's dominating when it comes to defense. We just need to see what that last card is. I mean, is it going to be the Lightning? Is it going to be the Rocket? Or is it even going to be a big spell? So we are just waiting for that spell to be used.
And that cannon has very little left on it, and the zap comes down perfectly on those spears. Now maybe a Dark Prince up high for this cannon. No, he goes Cage instead, so he can go Dark Prince low to get on top of that drill. Dark Prince just a hair late. 1834, 1817. Wallace down by about 1,000, but up 1 game, as Chris has put together a pretty good E-Giant deck, especially considering his opponent does not have a spell that can deal with his Flying Machine or Mother Witch.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't have any answers to it whatsoever, and these Flying Machines, this is the first Flying Machine that we've seen that didn't give 6+ Elixir worth of value, and it still forced out the Skeleton Dragons over the middle, which allowed the Mother Witch to get value on top of the Skeleton Dragons. So even though it didn't get value, it still ended up getting value, delayed the game.
Wallace goes late recovery on top of that Dark Prince because he knows that cannon cart needs to stay alive, but that Ewiz is causing havoc on the other side of the board, and the Flying Machine's on top. We're going to game number 3.
Wow. Chris dominated through that entire game. I mean, it just placing the E-Giant down and then throwing the Flying Machine over the middle was all he had to do, and he did that so well. He immediately recognized that that was how to play that game.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things like what you were talking about earlier on in the day, see, where you're like, well, if I see that my opponent has these spell options early on, you know they're going to go with X, right? Again, if it's the example you used was perfect because it's Freeze, Rocket, and Earthquake. And in the meta that we're in, and just even in general, like, you probably want to go with Earthquake in that, right? And if his opponent sees that early on, I don't know if that's the case or not, because obviously we're coming in after the draft and you can't see when you're drafting. But if that's the case, then Chris just goes, dude, there is no way for you to deal with any of these units. Snowball and Earthquake, no problem. My Flying Machine is going to get so much value. And then you talk about the pressure from the Dark Prince and then the cannon cart, right? Because the pressure from the Dark Prince was really interesting. And I love that Chris kind of recognized if I pressure with the Dark Prince, that means he has to play his cannon cart there, because if he gets that Fisherman on the board early, A, I can either abuse by getting my E-Giant in front and get pulled up to the Fisherman, or B, if he plays the Fisherman to stop the Dark Prince in the opposite lane, then there's nothing there to stop my E-Giant. So just a really great draft there by Chris, recognizing the weaknesses like you were pointing out, AC, very early on, and easy W in game 2.
Flying Machine might be the card that, I mean, it might be the strongest card in the game when you have, let's say, 5 different cards banned. And that's how it is with Draft and Mega Draft, where those cards can be banned. And I don't know, it's shocking. It feels like a champion. It feels like a card Evo if you don't have a Fireball, if you don't have a Mega Minion, if you don't have just anything that can stop it. It's the strongest card in the game.
It's so funny, that same thread that I was just talking about the CRL East draft mode, people were like, Flying Machine sucks. It's just like a weaker Musketeer with less health and less damage. And I was like, man, if only you guys could flash forward to the next 3 years of the competitive scene and see how great of a card Flying Machine actually is. Yeah, I mean, the speed on it, the distance on it, all of it. It's just so annoying to deal with. That and Magic Archer, I think, are the two. When you don't have a response, actually, I don't know. Mother Witch is up there as well. There's the
And
that, which is why those cards have been so abused today.
It's so funny. If it's a fireball-able card, it's going to be absolutely broken if you don't have fireball. And
Yeah.
it's even more so than actual games, because I mean it's not like everybody on ladder is going to be running fireball, so you can't just play that way. But there's something about it when you don't have fireball in draft, it's so dumb.
Aggressive Bandit at the bridge here from Wallace, met by this Goblin Hut, so that's a happy trade for Wallace. He'll take that 3 for 5 any day, and obviously with the nerf of the Hut, 1 Spear Goblin doesn't need to be tended to. It can be, obviously, but a lot better than 3.
Archers placed down just in time. The Wallbreaker will not be able to connect, so Wallace is going to be struggling throughout this entire match. The E-Barbs plus the Wallbreakers, he does not have the best responses whatsoever. And I mean, he's not going to be able to build pushes. He has nothing that he can really just play in the back, because the Witch, you should be able to do that. But then Chris is just going to say, hey, let me get that poison value.
Yeah, this is a weird, like, you know, you use that word a lot more than I do, but this is, I feel like, about as weird as a draft/deck composition as you could get out of Wallace. I mean, even his opponent, just the poison damage, the ability to get a mortar down, the pressure from the Goblin Hut, there's just things about it that it just seems so much more enticing. Whereas you look at Wallace's and it's just, yeah, it's just like bridge pressure and fireballs.
Bandit should be able to start dashing all over the board. E-Barb's in the opposite lane, and I mean, he got a little bit of something right there, and even more so right there. Wow.
There you go, nice E-Wiz, but Wallace sees that trick coming. He goes, or excuse me, E-Spirit, but Wallace sees that trick coming. The E-Spirit, great call there to just try to get that mortar connected. But Chris not lucky there, as Wallace is very fast with his reaction time.
I mean, Wallace is doing absolutely everything he can. Placing, I mean, I thought that Dark Goblin was placed incorrectly. I thought the mortar was going to splash on top of it, but it was the exact right tile placement, and he still has a chance. We can't count him out whatsoever, and I think it's really just because of the Bandit gameplay. He is getting so much value with it every time.
Yeah, I mean, he's in the lead at 24-78. We got 90 seconds remaining, and if his opponent starts to spell cycle, since he has a lead, he can actually keep up with that spell cycle, even though it's poison arrows versus fireball snowball. Wallace not in a bad spot, so baits out some archers there. A bit of a mistake from Chris, maybe, and Chris goes well played. I think probably all the same things just happened in his mind. Those wall breakers felt like they were too far outside. He knows he got baited, and now a second set of wall breakers comes in. There's no hut there, but there are arrows.
Yeah, I love how Wallace is approaching this game. 1 minute left. At the same time, Chris trying to get fairly aggressive enough. Oof. Oh, that is a beautiful splash right there. And I thought he protected the mortar perfectly. That's not going to be the case. But yeah, I mean, both players getting kind of aggressive, but not too aggressive, not overextending. And we're gonna see some action in the final 40 seconds.
Yeah, Wallace just needing to get a little bit more value out of those Dark Goblins. It feels like not really the it factor card, but it just does feel like he could just be using it a bit more. Arrows out, which means wall breakers can come in. Mortar is there to catch Bandit right behind. Bandit going to create some pressure, but still not enough pressure. Maybe another set of wall breakers going to come down here in a moment. But Dark Goblin has to clear the path first. Fireball, or excuse me, Poison comes in. 22-54 on the tower before the Poison. 21-88 there. Perfect set of arrows. Oh. E-Barb is on that right-hand tower, AC. That's going to do it.
Oh my goodness. 6 seconds left. Using the Fireball on top of it. Can he protect his tower? He absolutely will. And protect as well. I mean, you let one E-Barb go through. We've seen it before. We'll see it again. Just a one E-Barb, 20% health, and on the tower, and that's going to be enough to win the game. I thought for sure Wallace did not have a chance when this game started.
It was like orchestrated chaos. It felt like he was just anytime he had enough elixir to drop any card down, he would just drop it on the board, drop it at the bridge, drop it wherever. But, you know, I use the word organized for a reason, because he was still making his opponent have to think, right? Anytime the arrows were out, whatever was available, whether it was the wall breakers or a baity push, would come down instantly. He just did that over and over. And then when he started to see his opponent getting spread a little bit thin, maybe the archer's placed a little bit high, that E-barb comes down and somehow gets to the tower. I don't know how he ended up winning that game. I think, honestly, again, we talk about that mental strength of the pros. That is exactly it, because I would have given up on that game a minute beforehand. Just like throwing everything, kind of like what Damp did against Mohamed Light, right? It didn't feel like that game was over yet, but most likely it was. And he was like, I don't need this in my life. I'm out of here. I got my money. We're about to take a break. Let's take a look at the bracket, though, first, because we got a lot of action in the books, but we got a lot more action coming your way. We're halfway through our day. And just a shout out to our boy Samuel DeSoto. Just remember, guys, we are going to be playing that third place match. I know you want to get back on ladder, but Samuel, congrats to him yesterday on getting in that third place match. But just remember, we are going to have it on broadcast. We have our semifinals, then our third place match, and then our finals. Those are the 4 players that remain. Not a big surprise when you look at the names out there. Adnan and Mohamed Light, repeat customers from yesterday. Mohamed Light, repeat winner from every competition in 2023. And then, of course, the other 2 guys there still hanging strong after a couple great sets. AC, you and I will be back just along with everyone else for some more competition in just a little bit. But while we're gone, go check out RoyaleMSTRS on Twitter and on Discord. I saw someone in the chat yesterday, numerous people in the chat yesterday, and someone on Twitter today asking, how do I get involved in the competition? There's still a lot more. RoyaleMSTRS is the way to do it, whether it's on Discord, Twitter, YouTube, or Twitch. We'll be back in just a minute for the second half of our triple draft action. We'll see you there. Welcome back to the second half of our triple draft day here at Summer Clash from Royale Masters. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, well, Royale Masters is doing an awesome 5-day event. We're about halfway through our qualifiers, but we're only halfway through our triple draft day. Yesterday we had triple Elixir. Next week we got Heist and Sudden Death, and of course our championship on Sunday, not tomorrow, a week from tomorrow. ACU and I have been having a lot of fun today. Fireball bait cards have really been the dominating force here in triple draft, which makes a lot of sense if your opponent doesn't have fireball or even poison to get on top of them. People have really struggled here today, and you know, in terms of standouts, it feels like all of our winners are pretty much standouts. I mean, yes, Mohammed Light is there, but I think Adnan had a really dominating first set as well, and I think the picks as we got through the day were more and more impressive by those players that came out on top.
Yeah, I think Adnan has been the one who surprised me the most by just how well-rounded it felt like his games were. Because, I mean, we saw yesterday's tournament, people only really started to figure it out after the third or fourth, fifth set overall. Adnan figured it out immediately. That is so impressive.
And the top two players today, unless one of them is Mohammed Light, will move on to our championship Sunday, where we'll be playing a bunch of the combined modes. Obviously, Adnan would love to be there after not quite getting to the end yesterday. It was over in Mohammed Light, who were able to take our first and second places respectively. But today it does, like you said, Adnan definitely does look like a strong favorite now that we're halfway through our day. And of course, we have other players. Oh, speaking of other players, we had Chris in the YouTube chat who we just saw, and he said the wall breaker, and if you guys know what I'm talking about, go watch the replay of the last game of the last set. The wall breaker pushed Wallace's E-barb, I guess, a little bit to the right, which made it get on top of that archer, or focus on the archer, which made it go right to the Princess Tower. That was it. One small interaction gone awry, but shout out to Chris, who did a great job here today. Eliminated, obviously, before they would like to, but still a great match nonetheless. So, talking about money, AC, I think if I can remember correctly, I'm going to do some scrolling here. All the players that have been eliminated so far walked away with 150 bucks today. Not bad. Moving forward, fourth place gets 200, third place gets 400, second place gets 800, and of course a shot in the championship, and first place 1,500 and a shot in the championship. Adnan, top of your screen, Agony King at the bottom. While Adnan maybe was a little bit more impressive overall in terms of his triple draft play, it was Agony King who really kind of took our breath away, if you will, with some Heal Spirit play that stole him game number 3.
Yeah, so right there, I mean, it was Heal Spirit gameplay and not Flying Machine gameplay. Flying Machine not placed quickly enough, and the balloon is able to make it to the tower. It's always such a sick interaction to see where it's a lone loon and you just can't stop. You just don't have the right cycle.
I know. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It definitely makes me sick when that happens, and right here, right now, Agony King going, all right, your building is definitely out of cycle. Let me pull that prince away, and this golem gets right on top of tower. Great plays there from Agony King, and that prince has no life left in it. Fireball for the Mother Witch, and this tower, while it won't go down, is in a rough spot.
Tower all the way down to 308. Can Adnan set up another push? Okay, he will, and I love the way that he did it.
Yeah.
He goes a loon behind the Phoenix. So that way, once the Phoenix pops, it's still going to be able to get value. Still going to need to spend more. Right there, towers can be down because of that.
Yeah, I mean, that was a really brilliant send there by Adnan. Not only does he go with the balloon behind the Phoenix, just like you said, to tank for it and obviously get on top of whatever building his opponent might have, but then he triples down with that musketeer at the bridge, knowing that something else is going to have to come down on top of that egg. And it's not going to just be a log, because a log would not deal with the balloon at all. So I really love the thought process there behind Adnan. An early tower trade-ish, if you will. But the one thing you got to think about is that tower needs a fireball and a log to go down on the right-hand side, which means if I'm Adnan, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that my opponent spends a fireball and log. And there you go. Fireball out early. Adnan goes to punish. Prince in the pocket.
Is probably going to be placed on top of the Spear Goblins, and that's exactly what we're going to see. The bomb will go off just in time. So great defense, great awareness on how he needed to play his troops. And Adnan, made the right rush. He went in with the Prince in the middle to take the aggro of the towers. Just wasn't enough. Defense from Agony King right there.
Yeah, and I really like the elixir management there by Agony King, right? He goes, all right, I have a spot right now. If he does go in, I can probably defend Sans Fireball. So he goes Fireball on top of the tower, knows that he needs to get a log in. He doesn't try to do it all at the end. We've talked so many times over the years of when you go for that tower dash in the final seconds, yeah, you might get the tower down, but when you spend 6 elixir as you're ticking into overtime, your opponent will always punish you. And Agony King doing a great job setting himself up for success as we move into our overtime period. Agony King only down by a bit after taking that tower.
Going in with the Golem. Does he get the right timing? He does, and he's able to catch the Mother Witch as well. So a really good spot for him right there. Standing cart over the middle to take out the Musketeer, and no log. So that's going to be a Phoenix respawning onto the map.
Yeah, and this might be a moment for a Balloon to come in. There we go, Balloon right at the bridge behind the Phoenix Prince Mother Witch push. A well-placed Fireball by Agony King, though, and a high E-Wiz. Not going to be enough to stop the Balloon with the Phoenix there, so he has to go Bomb Tower as well. Bomb Tower Bomb will be enough to take care of the Phoenix along with that Princess Tower.
It was really odd because I feel like he had the potential to stop just with the E-Wiz. It almost felt like that wasn't necessary for him.
That's what I was thinking too, but then because he did it, it almost like tricked me into thinking it was the right play. But yeah, the E-Wiz probably was enough. But maybe Agony King getting a little scared there, overspends, and now doesn't get a lot out of his offensive golem push. Would have probably liked to have that 4 elixir back.
So right here, I think he just needs to go Golem at the bridge. He doesn't really have enough time to place anything else. And if he goes Golem in the pocket, well, Adnan, he's just going to be able to go Goblin Hut on the side. So it's just a really bad spot for him, especially right now. Oh,
I mean, that was another mistake. I mean, he does get the Balloon pulled back, but the problem there was he overspent in the pocket again with the E-Wiz because he was scared. He got a little nervous. Oh, wow. I was like, wow, is this going to be enough? So it's 1562. Agony King really going for it. And then we see Adnan coming with the poison. Gonna be just enough. And trainer Adnan able to come back from taking a huge hit early on. He goes for a tower trade with a nice send with a Balloon Phoenix Musketeer push. Then we go to the 2-tower game. Adnan comes out on top by just under 200 HP. And that was really well managed by Adnan once things started to really get hot.
Yeah, I mean, really well managed by both players because Agony King, he had to spell cycle, so he did the Fireball early, and then he had a clean defense, and then he was able to get the tower down while still defending, and it really comes down to, well, maybe we actually were correct. Maybe he didn't need to go Bomb Tower. He should have set up with another Golem earlier, and it really could be that one mistake was the reason why he wasn't able to win, even though we still haven't been able to figure out if it actually was a mistake.
Yeah, and then the second one, I think I can say was a mistake. We'll find out if I'm correct or not, but I believe was that E-Wiz in the pocket to get on top of the Balloon. The Musketeer was already there. I think he got a little nervous that maybe it was a Fisherman or something was going to connect. I'm not sure, but he dropped an E-Wiz on top of it, and it was another situation where it wasn't necessary, and I think it was actually the moment where you're like, he just needs to put a Golem down at the bridge.
Oh.
Had that E-Wiz been not played, he maybe would have had enough elixir to do it. Can't remember if that was the exact sequence, but either way, it did feel like there was just a couple overspends on defense. When you have a game that was only separated by less than 200 HP, it can be, just like you said, AC, it can just be one quote-unquote mistake that is a little bit too much that gives your opponent just enough space. And Adnan is a guy, I mean, I didn't think he was out of it when it happened early on because it did feel like he had a nice elixir advantage there, but he did a really great job of just recognizing what his opponent had, how much his cards were going to cost to defend that, and then sticking into it all the way through that second tower game.
Yeah, and I really like your point. Well, just the fact that he wasn't. We often see players get too aggressive. Right there, he just wasn't aggressive enough. We needed to see him place the Golem. I mean, sometimes you have to place the Golem into a charging Prince. Sometimes that is the best interaction possible for you. You just need to get the Golem going downhill, and we just didn't see that until way too late.
Yeah, I mean, that Golem push, it's very similar to late E-Giant, late Lava pushes. Like, you know it's going to take time. and you know the time's ticking down, you can't create time in your mind, and it feels like sometimes they're just like, I just said time way too many times. It just feels like in those moments they go, I need to defend first, I can't take any more damage, and they just missed their opportunity. That's really all it was. Agony King just needed to get back on offense, and he couldn't do it. But here in game number 2, a long stop and stare. You don't see this too often in triple draft. Usually there's at least 1 or 2 cheap cards on either side, but who knows? Maybe they both built great decks and they don't want to ruin what could be a potential 1-push win.
That's right. I would assume now that we've gotten down to 140, we're probably going to get down to about 105, 110. But I mean, it's kind of cool to see who does the first play, and if they choose to wait till like 105 or like 120, because if it's 120, it just means they're 1 card away from their perfect cycle. If it's 105, that means they just have the correct card. So just being able to look at the time left, you see who actually had a perfect starting hand and who didn't.
So let's see, we're hitting that 8 seconds, and there you go, AC. Great call on the timing. Can't write that much better. And there's the 105. Literally the 2 numbers that you called out. We see an RG come down in the back for Adnan, which is most likely exactly what he wanted. And then in response, Agony King goes, well, now I can't leak. I need to get the most high DPS card out on top of it. And I bet you pat yourself on the back after that one.
Yeah. I was going to do it regardless, but it also just worked out. So now it makes it a little bit more enjoyable. Adnan getting extremely aggressive. RG at the bridge. And it's all because that poison just missed. Plain and simple, the poison did not get the value it needed.
That's Skarmy going to be a really interesting card from Agony King. We all know how easy it is to deal with Skarmy, but when you're playing it at the highest level, your opponent usually does an exceptional job of playing it in the worst moments for you, and we'll see how many times that Skarmy is going to line up perfectly with a bad Barb Barrel, an Ewiz that's too far away, whatever it might be, or just baiting out a Fireball. Agony King responds, E-Giant at the bridge, it's his turn to get on offense.
Ewiz plus the E-Barbs are going to clean everything up nicely. Adnan will have to come up with some sort of response for the Baby Dragon, and we are going to see the Phoenix. So 148 left in the game, getting the tower down to 2749 and 2538. So slight advantage for trainer Adnan, and shouldn't be able to have the Phoenix respawn. Okay, no. I mean, just the difference between the Phoenix from the beginning when it was first released and now is such a stark difference. That Phoenix was spawned twice at the beginning when it was first introduced to the game.
Yeah, absolutely crazy. I mean, still a card that feels very, very strong in the game. I don't think I want to use the word broken, especially because everyone's distracted by the evolutions at the moment. But yeah, that Phoenix versus Mega Minion in terms of when you can actually just build your own deck as opposed to drafting what you're given, it doesn't really feel like it's much of a conversation. There we go, Skarmy up high, plus Mega Minion, Barrel comes in, NATO pull back, and that is going to be a nice defense there for Agony King. So this time he goes, all right, let me play the Skarmy again to see if you actually bite, and then he does, and then that Mega Minion plus NATO going to be more than enough.
Wow. Just that one ghost going down the left lane makes it so... Okay, there you go. He does have the Phoenix in time. But it just ruins his cycle. His entire thing was that he wanted to get an E-Giant push, and he was forced not to because of that one ghost where it forced out certain very specific cards.
This is trouble for Adnan. I mean, he does not have a building. He does not have his Skarmy. He plays it early on, NATO's things back, and a massive send. And now E-Barb's coming down on the left-hand side. A last-second Skarmy there by Agony King. Really great play, but it just feels like he's hanging on for dear life, and Adnan goes, I know it's over, man. You got no building. You can't stop this RG push. And realistically, Agony King did a very good job for a very long time, considering he had no stun, no slow. He only had the NATO.
Yes. And right there, we can give props to him, but I don't think Adnan is going to do the same. Adnan coming out with a lot of BM, something that we don't get to see very often in competitive days. But that also doesn't surprise me when I think of Adnan. He likes to have his fun in these kind of competitions.
I was just gonna say, Adnan, don't change, man. If you can keep playing the way that you're playing, it's no sweat off my back to see those BMs come out. Agony King falls there as, you know what, maybe the BM is deserved. Maybe Agony King has beaten him on ladder with Sparky numerous times before. I definitely want to BM someone that did that, but Agony King's run comes to an end. Adnan, now guaranteed on our Sunday, right? Took him a couple days to do it, but he will be there on our championship Sunday, regardless of whether he ends up in second or first place. And this next match is a really exciting one. I mean, it doesn't matter what format it is. You have two of the best players in the world in Wallace and Mohamed Light coming out next. Both of them doing very well in their opening sets, obviously. It feels like Wallace maybe got a little bit lucky, at least according to Chris. You know, that wall breaker interaction, the archer maybe drawing that E-Barb's attention, gets it on top of tower in those final seconds where, just as yesterday, Mohamed Light has had dominant victories against his opponents. So obviously, I don't think it's even worth asking who wins this one, right? It's like, do you ever bet against Mo? But I do think this will be a very competitive and a very fun triple draft. I'm excited to see what they come out with. This is the situation where if Wallace just gets himself in a great spot matchup-wise, which he did really well in his prior matches, other than that third game, Mo could just be in a bad spot, but that's also assuming that Mohamed Light does a bad job drafting, which is, you know, now I'm just trying to make things up.
You know, it's super interesting to think about it, but do you think these players are working with analysts at all in this competition? Like, I really could see working with Jebez or, I mean, just any of these analysts, like, it could be helpful because you could easily talk about the decks and you could just have somebody just remembering your opponent's cards and what they could be potentially using as well. I would assume they have to use.
Yeah, I mean, anytime a round of draft cards comes up, right, there's so many potential options that can already happen that you need to maybe have another set of eyes on it or another brain to just go, well, yeah, but if he does this or if they draft this, then this. And you're like, oh, yeah, I didn't even think about that. Let's go with Freeze instead of Earthquake this time around. The other part of that is if I'm Mohamed Light and Jebez, I am going to join every competition and work together and just laugh all the way to the bank. There's no reason not to right now, right? And like, I don't mean that as like a joke, or I'm not trying to say it hyperbolic or like as hyperbole. I'm saying it as just, look, if you're on a run and you're winning everything, there's no reason to stop that run. They work together great in every format. They might as well continue to work together to just keep stacking cash. All good things come to an end, as you know, AC. No matter how good you are, no matter how unstoppable you are, eventually you'll have to hang up the belt. So let's just stack cash while no one can beat you.
Yeah, fully agree with you. And he's just so smart. So you know he's actually gonna use it well. He's so
I know. When I asked about like what he's gonna do with his money, he's just like, all right, now you're teaching me life lessons about my finances. Also, great, good.
Mohamed Light using the Phoenix and Barbarrel. Wallace on the other side using the Log and the Dark Goblin, both just feeling each other out. Mohamed Light looks to be going forward towards the control side. Actually, and Wallace the same way, using the Cannon Cart.
Yeah, Cannon Cart, basically it feels like almost since, not because of Mohamed Light, but it felt like since he started using it, it's shown up in almost every single game. But everyone out there knows Cannon Cart, one of the best cards in the game and a really good triple draft card.
So mini P.E.K.K.A from Mohamed Light. Archie should be able to get one shot, but with the help, it doesn't. Wow, that's a new interaction for me. I don't think I've seen that.
I was just gonna say that's a great 8 elixir spend there from Mo that takes care of the Royal Giant and takes care of those E-Barbs, giving him about a 1.5 elixir lead right here. So yeah, I'm learning things too. Apparently a mini P.E.K.K.A plus an E-Wiz will completely counter a Royal Giant and E-Barbs defensively. So all of you in the 5K ladder area now know.
The old 8 for 12. And yeah, just a good spot for him. 1 minute left, heading into double elixir. And Mohamed Light gonna cycle the Ram Raider over the middle.
Wow.
Good lightning value, but the Fisherman should be able to clean it up there.
Phoenix, though, will it get to the tower? It does. It gets on top. 2 little hecks from the beak and a death damage from that egg, and Wallace does get an RG shot this time as the E-Wiz was not there, coupled with the Mini P.E.K.K.A. Mini P.E.K.K.A getting a lot of value, though.
And not going to have to defend it, but still chooses to do so. Rage on the left side, so Muhammad Light has released all 8 of his cards onto the board, and now Wallace doesn't have to worry about what the last card is going to be. So that's going to be Triple Spell plus Ram Rider. No building whatsoever, and that's a great fireball. Look at all the value it was.
Yeah, really nice fireball there for Wallace. This bar barrel just going to come out for Mo to counter, but the Dark Goblin is in tow, so a last-second Ram Rider comes in, and now a Phoenix on top. So Wallace definitely making Mo play a little bit uncomfortably, and of course those Fishermen's doing a really good job at controlling that Ram Rider. I mean, he's got Fisherman, Log, and Cannon Cart, and Fireball. All going to be good ways to control that Ram Rider. On top of that, if he really needs to, the E-Barbs might be a good way to go.
And so right here, when you look at Wallace's defenses, you're thinking, oh, wow, he's defending it very easily every single time. He's doing a great job. In the middle. The problem is, that only works until the final push. And that final push, he's going to go in with the Lightning over the middle, which is going to take up the Fisherman and potentially the Cannon Cart or Dark Goblin. So he isn't in the clear whatsoever. These pushes are going to get more difficult as the game goes.
And it looked like Wallace maybe had Muhammad Light's number there as he set up some good pressure on the right-hand side, then drops a Royal Giant at the bridge, immediately followed by a Fisherman to get on top of the Mini P.E.K.K.A. Mo, though, with his E-Wiz and Mini P.E.K.K.A, ended up doing a decent enough damage, kind of recuperating. 1473 to 2015 is where the game stands right now. Wallace maybe finding a chink in the chain of Muhammad Light.
A little bit of value right here. Ram Rider going to be able to get that. And so now we just have to see, will the Phoenix get a shot? No, going to protect it with the Executioner. 1473 to 1649. And this is a problem for Mo, especially with that Dart Shot.
Yeah, that Dark Goblin comes in. I mean, I was just going to say, Dark Goblin already one of my favorite cards in the game. In Triple Draft also becomes incredibly difficult to deal with if you don't have the spells. And look at that. Wallace's E-Barbs are on the tower. They win Game 3 against his former opponent. I believe it was Chris. And then they win Game 1 against Muhammad Light here. So Wallace making a case for himself. And yeah, AC, like you said, I mean, maybe he ends up in the top 2 of this. Maybe he goes on through and wins the championship. But is this enough to spark that flame behind Wallace to get him back in that CRL conversation? As you said, he is in the 39th spot, I think is what you said, which is pretty far away considering we're only taking the top 7 and there's only a few months left. So Wallace here maybe looking to find that spark after a great win over the GOAT in Muhammad Light. I don't know. Any thoughts about that matchup that stood out to you? Any things that really glaring mistakes or matchup conversations?
Let's see, I want to take a look at the overall context real quick of this game. So if Muhammad Light wins, the third place match is going to be between, I believe, Agony King and then Wallace. And then the winner of that match will actually move on to the next round with the championships. So right now, Wallace is just trying to confirm his... I mean, if Wallace wins this set, then he gets to move on no matter what. So Wallace just really wants to lock in right here. And that game number 1 showed. I mean, he did a lot of things really nice. The draft was good. And something about those E-Barbs. I mean, as soon as he picks them, he plays them really well. And even though there was a couple interactions where like the E-Wiz was on top of the Mini P.E.K.K.A, or sorry, the E-Bars were on top of the E-Wiz and the Mini P.E.K.K.A, and it felt like it wasn't getting enough value. Really, it was just waiting and waiting and waiting. Triple Elixir happens, and boom, you get to play them on the map, and they recap.
Yeah, I mean, the other part of Triple Draft is sometimes you only really have one great way to respond to something that's coming down the lane. So if you're looking at Muhammad Light's deck, that Mini P.E.K.K.A really is the best way to deal with it, right? You don't really want to go Rascals right on top because your opponent has Log. So when it becomes a situation like that, where Mini P.E.K.K.A is maybe the best answer. I mean, obviously you have E-Wiz and Phoenix, but E-Wiz and Mini P.E.K.K.A or Mini P.E.K.K.A by itself is always going to be a good response. Since you're not playing a deck that is built by you, that is built by the meta, you know, every now and then you're just going to have to play the most obvious response. And when that happened, Wallace being ready with the Fisherman that one time, setting that Mini P.E.K.K.A away, it really kind of opened up the door for Wallace to start to punish that right-hand lane and start to get fancy with dual lane pressure.
So I don't want to put too much pressure on Wallace, but this really does feel like the first time that I've seen somebody just playing as good as Muhammad Light and having a real chance to take a set. Like, this is very exciting, and it feels like history is being made because that's basically what's happening right here, if he can pull it off.
I know it feels like so ridiculous to say that because it's a triple draft tournament, but when you look at this year, there hasn't been anyone that can really beat Muhammad no matter what the format is. So I think getting a win off the GOAT is always something that you should take home and ride that wave of confidence, but he's got to get there first. Muhammad Light top of your screen, Wallace at the bottom. Wallace up 1 game after a really great draft. The other thing was that Dart Goblin, that last game, just impossible to get to. You have to either lightning it, or you have to hope that the Bar Barrel or Ram Rider can seek it out. Wallace going right back to the same win condition. He RG worked game 1. Will it work in game number 2? Wallace has a lot of good responses for that Prince.
Yeah, so far it is working. This is probably going to be when we figure out what his spell is. No, he's going to go Fisherman instead. Fisherman will be able to move it to the King Tower, so great situation for Wallace. I mean, that is exactly what you want to see.
Yeah.
HP lead on both towers and a King Tower activation.
Yeah, and Muhammad Light goes, ooh, I don't know if that's exactly what I want to see right now. You got Spear Goblins, you got guards to deal with that Prince, the Fisherman to pull it all in. Like you said, the great King Tower activation there. And the other thing is like, yes, you know, Wallace has good options. That wasn't on accident. It's triple draft, but I understand you can still maybe poke a hole in that. His interactions, though, have been perfect. He has been playing his micro and macro absolutely at the level that he needs to be.
Right there, Bandit almost gets to the tower, but not quite. And yeah, I mean, Wallace's deck is just so solid. The Musketeer, you're just going to be placing it in the back. Same thing, the guards plus the Bandit is always going to be able to clean up nicely on defense. Fisherman over the middle. And depending on how Muhammad Light wants to respond, okay, that is going to stop him from being able to go RG at the grid.
I mean, an arm and a leg spent there by Mo, and Wallace still just having every layer that he needs. And Muhammad Light goes, all right, this game's over. Let's just go on to game number... game number 3. No, so did he lose game number 1?
He did.
Oh, no, yeah,
It's
game number
over.
2. That's it, Wallace. I got confused
Wow.
by Muhammad Light losing,
Yeah.
but Wallace takes a quick, easy 2-0 there, and there we go. We have our 2 added competitors into our competition next Sunday. Wallace and Adnan will join Over and Muhammad Light on Championship Sunday. Wallace, great plays there, and Muhammad Light, one of the very few times, I mean, probably really the only time you'll see Muhammad Light just hang it up in a competition because he goes, whatever, I'm already in the finals, no problem, I'm hanging out. But good stuff there from Wallace. I mean, Royal Giant 2 games in a row, he puts together great decks, and honestly, I think the first time I can remember talking about Muhammad Light losing a set this year, even if it was triple draft.
Yeah, I think this is number 2.
Yeah, because right in the first month, qualifier at CRL, and then in DreamHack, right? So maybe 3. There's 3 losses. You could literally count them.
Wow, that is unreal. And I mean, it has everything to do with the quality of play from Wallace. It's nothing to do with Muhammad Light playing poorly. I mean, just the draft itself was great. I think we are recognizing right there from that set that RG is the name of the game. If you have the potential for RG, that should probably be how you want to set up your deck. And then at the same time, the guards, the Spear Goblins, the Musketeers, everything to kind of bring it over the middle of the game, or in the middle of the arena, and it slows the game down, and you eventually overwhelm with those RG pushes.
Yeah, really, really good stuff there. I mean, there actually are history of these games. I mean, only 4 of them ever played, but it is a 75% matchup for Wallace. Let's take a look here at our bracket to see where we're at now after finishing our semifinals. We have our 3rd place and our championship match ready. I think that's what they said. Who knows? Maybe I'm just throwing our producers for a loop here. But either way, we know what it is, right? We know it's Adnan and Wallace. And then at the bottom, it's going to be Agony and Muhammad Light. So Agony King, while he won't be playing for anything other than pride and a little bit more cash, he does get to go head-to-head against the best to ever do it. And then following that will be a game for prize money and a game for ego. And maybe Wallace can stop the BM that's been coming out from Adnan today. It has been a very, very clean run for him.
Yeah, I'm actually very excited for both of these just because Agony King and Muhammad Light, obviously Muhammad Light is so talented, but Agony King has really impressed me throughout this day. The heal spirit game, but just the fact that he's so content with delaying the game, and a lot of other players will try and get a little bit more aggressive, and he just wants to see how the game will play out, and it just really worked.
Yes, it does, and Muhammad Light going right back to Mini P.E.K.K.A, even though it did him a little bit dirty a couple games ago. Very fast reset here for him and Agony King, heading in just a few more minutes, and Momo going to the big bag of rocks, as my friend Rich Slayton loves to call it. E-Giant at the bridge. Does Mo have a fisherman? Does he have anything? We're going for a tower trade, looks like.
Wow. So, I mean, that's not what we expected. And it actually makes you wonder. I want to play out, or I want to see how this plays out, but you have to actually wonder if he's even just a little bit tilted. Like, it doesn't make sense for him to play this brand of Clash Royale.
Yeah, it definitely is a little bit off-brand from Muhammad Light, and, you know, he only gets about half the tower damage there from Agony King, who ends up playing a Wizard and a Dark Goblin. Really, that's really all he needed. Some great cleanup, 1323 to 1 tower down, as Muhammad Light going with a Golem Knight Mini P.E.K.K.A deck.
And Agony King, it's he has potential to still have a big spell and still have a building. Agony King's deck overall is quite poorly constructed, so
yeah,
it really is amazing for him that Muhammad Light chose to go for the tower trade in the first push. Otherwise, I don't know if he would have been able to do anything with that.
Interesting send here. I don't hate it, though. He goes Barb surrounding the Wizard, knowing that his opponent doesn't really have a big spell, and ends up giving a lot to that Golem. You know, Phoenix gets pushed away with a snowball. Golem gets broken before it crosses the bridge, and now Muhammad Light only has 3 Elixir and no way to get there. He goes Bar Barrel up high, maybe to try to keep the Phoenix alive. And while we may have thought he was tilted, he's definitely still making this tough for Agony King. Now time to set up maybe another Golem push as he sets up a Hunter first. Got to go Golem in front. He knows there's only 30 seconds remaining. And here we go. Wow. I don't know if the E-Giant is the correct way. I don't know.
Yeah, and then the pre-snowball as well. So Agony King potentially, potentially throwing away this game the way that's played, because Muhammad Light just has the answer. I mean, the Prince and the Mini P.E.K.K.A are going to be amazing.
Wizard distracted by the Golem, poison in. Prince and Mini P.E.K.K.A are going to get on top of the tower. No, just the Prince then gets pushed away, and a snowball has to come down. Also, the Golem still distracting that Wizard for a very long time. And, I mean, I don't even know. Maybe we can go back and ask the producers to edit out that part where we said Muhammad Light was tilted, because it doesn't really feel like something we should have said.
Yeah, that was poor choice of words.
Momo comes back. Yeah, won't happen again, Mo. I'm so sorry. We see here Poison going to get some good value on top of that Wizard. Wizard plus the Bard plus the Dark Goblin. It's going to do great DPS, don't get me wrong. But the problem is these Golems become a lot to deal with, and those poisons really do start to add up.
Wow, that is a really cool interaction for Muhammad Light right there. Going with the Bar Barrel directly on the closest pocket position that it could, and it walks through the Dark Goblin. I thought it was the King Tower, but he knew that interaction. I swear, he's the only one in the world who would know that.
Did Mo disconnect? Dude, he disconnected.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. He had that game.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a long time since we've seen a disconnect.
Yeah.
And, I mean, that's what it was, right? He goes Prince behind the King Tower to go work down the right-hand lane. His opponent goes E-Giant at the bridge, and I was, like, just waiting for the Mini P.E.K.K.A to come out. You know, I'm sure that's what he was ready to play. And, hey, I don't know when we'll ever be able to say this again, but Mohamed Light has just lost 3 games in a row.
Wow.
Just to get some
Wow.
history being made.
Yeah, I mean, Mohamed Light, he played a great game, and it's weird to have to hype up the loser in a match. So I'll just properly hype up both of them. Agony King, way to keep your phone running. And overall, I mean, Agony King deck pick was quite poor, I believe. And I mean, the thing is with triple draft, I can say this, and then I can look at his cards and say, wow, I would have done 1,000 times worse. So sometimes it's just really, there's no win. Right there, it was an awkward deck. You have the Wizard, the Knight. You also have the Giants. So that didn't really make sense. Overall, though, he kept the game going on long enough. I mean, I've always said, just give yourself a chance. Right there, Agony King did that, and it worked out.
He did. Yeah, I mean, when you look at the 2 decks on paper, I mean, Mohamed Light, he's got Poison, Prince, Phoenix, Hunter, Barbarrel, Mini P.E.K.K.A, Golem, and Skeletons. It feels like there's actually real synergy there, right? It feels like it's a deck that could somehow work out, kind of, you know, and we kind of saw it all get put together. And honestly, it would have won. And then you look at the other side of it, even what you called out early on, you know, the Knight, the Barbs, the Wizard, the Dark Goblin. I mean, that's a triple draft deck that somehow, and I mean, it gets a win because of the disconnect, but it started off really strong. But like, yeah, I have to agree. You have the Ice Spirit and the Snowball to kind of slow things down, but I don't know if Wizard and Barbs in a deck together is ever the right way to go.
Yeah, it gets, there's possibilities for it. And actually, one of my favorite decks of all time had Wizard and Barbs together.
When I said that, I was like, wasn't there a competitive deck that we saw for a minute?
Okay, so there was a really old competitive deck, and by competitive, it was just ladder at the time. It was called the Turquoise deck. And that was Giant Balloon, Wizard, Barb, Freeze, Rocket, and 2 other cards. But it was 5.0 Elixir, I believe. It was 5.0 or 5.1, but I'm pretty sure it was 5.0. And it was just the most fun deck in the game. Everybody, the first week of the season, would always run the Turquoise deck because it was so enjoyable. And then the second week of the season, which actually mattered, they would switch to their real deck.
That's hilarious. And Mohamed Light now back with his internet, back on the bottom of your screen, down 1 game. And you know what? I'm here for it. I would love to see a reverse sweep after a disconnect, even though I'm sure Agony King probably could use the Clash money a little bit more than Mo, who's already won almost 70 grand this year in just Clash winnings. Who knows? Maybe he still pulls off the reverse sweep. Who wouldn't love to see it?
Wow. And that is a cool fireball. I feel like, I mean, probably he just placed it down reactively, but it just feels like that was a prediction. Like he knew his opponent had to go Lumberjack. That was the only answer. So of course you can fireball like that.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, when you look at the other cards that were played, it does feel like that was the only thing that could come down. And maybe if it was just a second sooner, he would have still gotten the dash. So maybe it doesn't work in practice, but the idea was there, and it was impressive from Mohamed Light, who is down by just a bit. Earthquake Cycle comes in here from Agony King as a log cleans up the Goblin Gang that Mohamed sent down the right-hand lane, 2352 to 1795. Now, no big spell to deal with these piggies as it narrows that gap a bit.
No big spell and no small spell, which really mattered right there. He couldn't log off the hog, or he couldn't log the Royal Hogs back. And Baby Dragon just doing enough. Wow, for Baby Dragon for the last couple days, that's all it does, just enough.
Yeah, Baby Dragon was strong yesterday also. Good call there.
Princess
a little bit of
at
splash.
the bridge, getting a little bit of splash, doing its job as well. So 1908, lowest tower for Agony King, 1626, lowest tower for Mohamed Light. And right now, Mohamed Light, he hasn't been able to set up the recruit like he wants to, and he's going to choose not to do that. Probably doesn't have log in cycle, but he can get away with it.
Dark Goblin there putting in some work. Not around to Fireball again yet is Mohamed Light, but by the time that these cards work down the lane, he should be. We'll see if he ends up using it on top of a couple of those cheap cards, or if he just has to go troops. Looks like it's all troops. Bandit putting in some work on top of those princesses plus mother witches. clearing the lane.
And wow, messes up the placement with the Mother Witch so it doesn't target the Spear Goblins. Agony King getting aggressive again, but these Hog Raiders are not doing enough, especially when you miss the log. That is a bad interaction for him. And Agony King just has no good cards. I mean, the guards and the Lumberjack they just don't match up well against Mohamed Light's deck.
Yeah, look at that. Fireball comes in. Phoenix death damage is there. Mohamed Light evens things up in an emphatic, dominant Game 2 win there. I almost felt like he was playing a little angry, which understandably so. I mean, we should be in a situation where Mo just went 2-0 in a set that he came back from in both games. But instead, we're going to game number 3 after a unfortunate disconnect from Mohamed Light, unless you're Agony King, a very fortunate one. Dude, that was a really good game and a very dominant one, it felt like.
Yeah, great. It was two things that I really liked from Mohamed Light right there. First one, very basic, just his offensive pushes. Oh, log isn't in cycle, I can go in with Royal Hogs, plus the Dark Goblin behind. So great recognition of what spells were in his opponent's deck. And then the second thing, what was the second thing? Oh man, I've got nothing. So the first thing he did was great, let me tell you.
It was. I mean, honestly, most all the things he did were really great. I'm just trying to hit refresh here to see if it'll pop up, because I do. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Perfect. I got it. Okay, the second thing that I really liked was that he recognized that Royal recruits in the back, it wasn't necessarily the play. It wasn't how he was supposed to win, because he saw in his opponent, he had the Baby Dragon and he had the Princess. So Royal recruits just wasn't going to be the win condition for him anymore.
Yeah, and that Mother Witch there also was just, you could drop her in the opposite lane. It would turn those recruits into like a counter push even, which was super annoying. And then there was the one time where they got split and it felt like Agony King was getting not overwhelmed, but he just like, he just felt like he had it covered defensively very cheaply. He went Mother Witch on the right-hand side to deal with the 3 recruits. Mo's Fireball, I think, was just like literally a millisecond early. So the Fireball came down, killed the Mother Witch, but then the one pig that spawned distracted the other recruits. Had that not happened, he maybe would have gotten some good damage in with his recruits. But yeah, like you said, a great adjustment there, kind of like what we saw before when it was like, all right, I'm not going to get through to tower, I think, with my Giant, so let me win with a Dark Prince Baby Dragon push. I can't remember exactly what his win condition was, but that was one of those situations.
Mohamed Light cycling Bomber, Mortar, and Dark Goblin, so going more log baity than usual. And then with the log as well, so that's why he can go log bait. He knows he's got the log.
Yeah, last game kind of went log baity also. You know, you talked about the log not being available to push back those Royal Hogs because it was always looking for the Goblin gangs or that Dark Goblin. So Mohamed Light really loving the Dark Goblin as he's going super cheap with Mortar. This deck actually looks pretty fun.
So Agony King, the reason why he's so good at Sparky is because he recognizes things that other players don't. Ice Golem was wasted, 6 Elixir on the right. He might not be able to defend this push. And Lightning going to come down, but it's going to miss. That is great defense from Mo.
That was crazy, dude. There was like 3 layers to that where it was like Mo saw that Sparky and Giant were available, so he had to think about getting E-Drag, but then he saw Lightning was available, so I don't know. That was a really, really cool game of Clash Royale chess played by both these guys. And unfortunately for Agony King, as usual, Mohamed Light comes out on top, but not by a lot. 600 HP separate the two, and as we all know, one Sparky shot can change that in the blink of an eye. Whew, this is a fun one.
And so I like that Mo is keeping up the aggression right there. He still needs to get damage. It's likely that he isn't going to have the best big spell ever. And then once he gets that damage, he's going to be able to go in with the defensive mortars that we should be seeing sometime soon. Defensive mortars, it doesn't matter if you have lightning or earthquake. It just feels like it's always doing its job, no matter what spell response.
Yeah, and that defensive mortar obviously clears the path for the E-Dragon on the opposite side in terms of the lightning not being as available. Should be back around to Dark Goblin, but might just go, yeah, there's the Dark Goblin after the log, then an Ice Golem up high to distract the Phoenix. Very clean here from Momo. As he sets up another Bomber mortar push. I like that.
There you go. Finally protects the mortar. Firecracker will be placed in the middle. Is he going to pair it with the poison, though? He does not. Okay, does not choose to poison with that.
Yeah, I really like that log, right? He goes for the log knowing that the mortar's going to lock on the Firecracker. Firecracker does take 2 shots, though. And now the Lightning takes care of the E-Drag, but oh my goodness, a perfectly placed Ice Golem kills the Sparky.
And that's a crazy interaction that happens sometimes with, I forgot which, maybe the Prince or something. Oh, but right there, Mini P.E.K.K.A gets the shot, gets the second. That's
the
game.
reverse sweep after the disconnect, the missed NATO, and gets to beat Agony King with a goblet, or excuse me, with a giant Sparky deck. Mohamed Light just, I mean, what more is there to say? That was awesome.
I love that he kept getting aggressive with the mortars. Knew he'd be able to defend. The E-Dragon always got value. And I mean, really, that first push by Agony King, where he recognized that Mohamed Light wasted the bomber, wasted the mortar that could be played on defense. And then Mohamed Light just showed, hey, buddy, I know you saw Sparky. I saw Sparky. We all saw Sparky. I'm taking the drag. You're not getting past it. Like, that was so cool to see the levels at play when you just know your opponent.
Yeah, and then you go to the next level of the Lightning coming down for the E-Drag, but him being ready with another response to get on top. Like, that was so cool for me because this is not ladder, this is not CRL or dual mode, this is 8 cards. Could be any 8 cards. You just assume those are the cards your opponent picks, and then to still be able to predict stuff is just next level gameplay from both of them, right? I mean, I've always said this in movies, like you can't have a great hero without a great villain. And while Agony King is not the villain in this scenario, he played very smart as well, but he just got beat. He got beat by the best. And that second layer of that, you know, the response after the Lightning, and then that kill of the Sparky with the shot of the perfectly placed Ice Golem. They're just 2 things that are just chef's kiss in terms of the play. And then, you know, if you want to add one more accolade to Mohamed Light's belt, he pulls off the reverse sweep after disconnecting for a 3rd place victory. But 3rd place, that's it, right? We still have our championship match between Wallace and Adnan, which should be a great one because it was, I mean, I don't know the last time you've seen Mohamed Light get swept, but Wallace just pulled that off last round.
That's right. That's right. I forgot it was a sweep as well. So Wallace obviously playing extremely well today. And then Adnan on the other side, it feels like I haven't seen Adnan's gameplay. Like, it just feels like he's played and just won pretty easily, and then he was gone just like that. So it's funny to think about Wallace going 2-0 against Mo, and then me still saying these things about the other player. But Adnan has impressed me so much.
Well, and like I kind of know exactly what you're saying because I was watching Adnan play, and you and I have both talked about how well he's done drafting. It feels like he just picks the 8 best cards for the scenario and then just drops them on the board. And because of what he's done in terms of the draft and picking what his opponent's going to pick and picking good counters to it, it's almost like the game just plays itself. It's like he started a simulation where he's got the advantage. And it's been a cool thing to watch because that, again, it shows you, like, you know, we go back to the conversation of CRL 2020 East and, you know, triple draft being involved and obviously the unknown factors that you can't control, which is why inevitably we saw it leave the game. But I think it was Baron, maybe, when there was their first triple draft tournament. He had like 70 or 100 or some crazy amount of wins without a loss yet. And I was like, look, man, you can call it what you want, but there clearly are brains that understand this level better than others. Because you can't just get lucky that many times in a row. You can't just accidentally draft better than people that many times in a row. I'm pretty sure it was Baron. And Adnan has really shown that today, that almost like the deck plays itself. I think that Wallace will be a great example of where Adnan is going to come into some true adversity.
Adnan going with a quick cycle, Dark Goblin and the Wall Breakers, the first 2 cards of choice from him. Cannon Cart will be able to win the interaction and be able to cross the board now that the bats are out of play, waiting for Wallace's response and going to force out a cannon. So both players just resetting.
I'm always nervous to play my building as a defense like that early on because I'm worried they're just going to punish me with a Tower Seeker, but that's probably because I'm bad at the game.
No, I get what you're saying. It stresses me out. I have to use 2 different fingers to hold 2 different cards. I don't know which win condition they still have. So
Right.
then I need to have 4 different options on D. I get it. I get it. The more I talk about it, the more I get it.
Okay, good, because I was like, sometimes I can just straight lose games because of a bad decision of a defense early on if they have something like, I've been punished with E-Giant before, but anyway, not the case here for Wallace, as he had another building just in case he needed it, and also, I mean, he's Wallace, right? Like, that's the thing about pros is when you don't have the response that a normal person might need, they have other creative ways of getting there, and I do like the deck that Wallace has. It's got a lot of annoying pieces with the bowler and the executioner that can technically get on top of tower, especially with that drill. And then the bats. The bats are still one of my favorite cards in the game just because, I mean, they've always been so great, but it feels like they're, in terms of spells, they're like the least important card to take care of right now. There's so many other things that need to be taken care of with the arrows, like the archers and the Dark Goblin, and now with the buff of Firecracker, it feels like the bats are kind of forgotten.
Yeah, that's a great point. I forgot about them myself, really, and it's that just totally makes sense. People are so worried about every other card right now, and I feel like it just says that the bats are in a healthy spot where you no longer have to like totally worry about them, but at the same time, it's still bad. It's like Elixir and it's air trade.
Yeah, and you know, we always hear pros talk about, like, not always, but every now and then, wow, and the tower goes on top of the baby dragon instead of the wall breaker, so nice timing there by Adnan. But you'll hear every now and then people just be like, oh, dude, bats are so broken. Zappies are so broken. But they won't actually want them to change, and so that's a good point that you make there, where, yeah, they're balanced and they're super strong.
13 seconds left. Exy gets the final shot off, so not going to have to worry about the baby dragon on the left side. 25-27 to 25-84. Adnan still has not shown his last card. Still could be Rocket. Still could be,
There you go.
it still could be a building as well. And then Wallace using that light.
Yeah, Wallace gets his card out there. Lightning get on top of that cannon cart, but a connection there from the wall breakers gives Adnan not the lead, but he's got damage in both lanes.
Wow. Chooses not to protect it. I would have assumed he would have gone cannon cart high.
Yeah.
But I guess he decided that it wasn't worth it to protect the Dark Goblin.
Yeah, maybe it's something to do with like the log, and yeah, I don't know. But then you'd think you'd want to maybe bait out the log. I'm not sure. There's the thing is, we talked about this earlier today, and I think it really kind of echoes even stronger now, resonates even louder now is actually probably better terminology. But the idea, oh no, I just lost it. Oh yeah, that Adnan only has the wall breakers as his win condition. We talked to this, just not strong enough. You need a secondary win condition.
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, he's doing everything he can, but if your plan is mini P.E.K.K.A at the bridge and then kind of figure out what you can do with that, it's pretty much game over just like that. And we're really seeing that cannon cart on the left side, but the cannon in response is more than enough, and we should just see, yeah, I mean, Baby Dragon got on tower, which is great, but it's just not enough.
No, shouldn't be. Poison's going to come in. Good damage from the poison in there, but now we get a bowler, plus bats push, plus drill push in the opposite lane. Bats are on top of the tower, and Wallace just playing a beautiful game. Lightning comes in just in time, and now we're just one lightning away, but you love to see it. Adnan not going to give up. No, sir, not yet.
Cannon up.
Yeah.
Second cannon up top, 8 seconds left. Will he be able to finish the game out on time? He does. Wallace with a great game number one. It was pretty simple though, because he had the log, I believe, and he just stopped the wall break. There was nothing else to it. Wall breakers and poison is just not enough offensive potential. It forced out mini P.E.K.K.A at the bridge multiple times. That is you are never gonna win when that is one of your plays.
You know, you understand the idea behind it, right? You like, but in your life or in your career in CR, it's like how many decks out there just have wall breakers as a win condition? Like zero.
Yeah.
Zero. They always have either Princess or Dark Goblin and Barrel, or they have Drill, or they have Magic Archer and Miner. They literally always have something else, and it's because of exactly what we saw there. There's no way to get through. On the other side of it, we go, well, yeah, well, how many times you see Drill all by itself? Well, maybe a little bit more than wall breakers, but you got to remember, honestly, in the game that we're in, Lightning is kind of a win condition. It really is. It started to get a lot of value. Now, is it a true win condition? If I was in draft and that was my win condition card, would I be upset? Absolutely. But we've also talked about rocket cycling and lightning cycling. Rocket cycling, not really as much anymore after the nerf. But lightning cycling still happens. It still happens in CRL, still happens on top ladder. You know, E-Giant decks with lightning are a big example of that. So I do feel like in terms of what Wallace did in this game, well, he got bats, which are a really good card because not a lot of time will you have a spell to deal with them, or you'll need that spell somewhere else. And then he had three really beefy cards, but he had two super annoying cards. And I really do think in triple draft, having something like Bowler or Executioner or Flying Machine or Dark Goblin, like, you need to have a frustrating card for your opponent to deal with.
Yeah, and I think Bowler, it's the same thing with Flying Machine when you don't have a Fireball, and how it becomes just so overall, it just becomes broken overall. Bowler, it feels like something about something about draft where Bowler is just always good. If you have lightning, it's still good. If you yourself have tornado, it's great, but you don't even need the tornado with it because it's just a body blocker. It's something where you can play 5 of the front board and have them play into you. There's so many benefits to using Bowler.
Yeah, and that pushback is just massive. So Adnan goes aggressive Magic Archer at the bridge on top of the Phoenix. He gets a Lumberjack out of it and a little bit of damage. You add the poison in there and a lot more damage. Wall breakers both drop down at the bridge for a connection as the Bowler comes down in the back for Wallace. Wallace looking, I mean, it looks mostly like a real deck here, but obviously no idea what the win condition is. Could be anything from Graveyard to, I mean, we haven't seen any Graveyard at all today.
Yeah, that's right. I'm going to, just because it's Wallace.
It's gotta be like E-Giant, right?
Well, just because it's Wallace, I want to say RG as my belief.
Yeah, that's probably actually the best call. That's most likely what it is. It feels like it should be something heavier, but yeah, he's not really a huge golem player, and RG he had a lot of success with, so we'll see.
Adnan, I mean, yes, we're seeing Wall Breakers poison again for game number 2, but this time he's also introducing the Magic Archer, and with that secondary win, it's now actually a deck. It's feasible for him to have success, so I like the adjustment to have Magic Archer.
That was a really great send there by Adnan. He knew the Phoenix was going to come out, gets a fire or an Ice Spirit right on top of it, so the cannon cart can connect on top of that left-hand tower. We'll see what he wants to do in terms. Misses the pull on the Phoenix. Bit of a shame there, so Log has to come out as well. And Wallace right back on offense. This time a Mega Knight comes down. So there we go, guys. Something we talked about earlier today. Mega Knight is technically a win con in triple draft. We'll see if Wallace has any secondary unit to go with it.
Wow, choosing to go Mega Knight for the win condition, not...
I almost wonder if he was given it so late and nothing else synergized, but weird draw.
Yeah, and so now Adnan is kind of faced with a decision on how he wants to approach the rest of the game. When you know your opponent only has the MK and you have defenses as strong as, you know, even just Ice Spirit bats so much. So he has a lot of opportunity to play a lot slower, even though he's going Magic Archer at the bridge.
I know, and I don't really like that play. I feel like he could literally just cycle 4 cards in the back for the rest of this game and then save the Inferno, and he'd be in a great spot. But, I mean, he obviously is a better player than I am. Wallace going to try to take advantage of it. MK not going to get there, but does, a perfect Wall Breakers pull there.
No Earthquake coming out from Wallace just yet. Phoenix will be able to do something to the tower. No Magic Archer in response from Adnan. So 1968 to 2032, but Wallace's win condition right now, I mean, his best win condition is Earthquake Cycle. So definitely advantage for Adnan.
70 seconds, no, excuse me, now 62 seconds remain here as we get into triple Elixir. Final moment of overtime, and trying to get a little support behind this bowler as the MK baits out the Inferno Tower, and now the bowler is supported by this Musketeer, but bats plus Cannon Cart going to be more than enough. Then you have to go for the -1 trade on top of those wall breakers, so Wallace unfortunately going to have to eat a poison from Adnan, 1974 to just below 1800.
Well, that's some very comical Ice Spirit value right there, because it actually forced out a response from Wallace. It made him use the MK like that. We see the Lumberjack on the opposite end, and
Look
wow,
at that.
prediction right there. It doesn't really do anything, though. As cool as it looks, it's not going to be enough.
I know, I hate that. You get a nice prediction off, you're like, well, now what? Like, I predicted what's going to happen, but I didn't win because of it. And Wallace just stuck in a tough spot. I mean, this is the first time today where we've looked at Wallace's decksmanship in this triple draft and gone, this doesn't make a lot of sense. Whereas you look at Adnan's and it makes a lot more sense, right? Just because of the Magic Archer being coupled with those wall breakers, it makes the wall breaker poison plus building a much more viable option. Wallace in that game, he kind of did all the things that we've said are wrong, which is you don't really have a true strong win condition. You can't really just play the overwhelm game at this level, and that's exactly what you're doing when you have something like a Boulder and a Mega Knight in a deck.
Yeah, the synergy between the two, actually the synergy between the two is just, it's too much for it, and you don't really, you're never going to overwhelm. It's always going to do kind of the same tasks, and they will complement each other where you can push back multiple things, but it doesn't matter. Just because you're pushing things back doesn't mean your opponent isn't getting tons of value with spell chip damage or Magic Archer chip damage, or I mean, even just, you can have the Bowler and MK in a deck and then still lose to a Drill deck. And that shouldn't happen, even though both are technically perfectly fun.
Yeah. I mean, you just look at it and it's like he's got, I think as you were kind of guessing, if you will, on broadcast, like Earthquake may be the best way to go. Maybe just Earthquake cycle, but then you got to keep up. If your opponent starts to recognize you're doing that, then every time you Earthquake, they're going to poison and probably snowball as well. And then you have that Inferno Tower there that is just like very difficult to deal with, because then if you're Earthquake cycling for damage, that Inferno Tower, there's no way to deal with it, period. You play it, if Adnan plays it just a little bit low, there's absolutely no way to get on top of it other than logging it. So, you know, a tough place for Wallace with basically no win condition. It was Earthquake and Mega Knight as his win condition, whereas his opponent had Magic Archer, Wall Breakers, and Poison. And as you can see, Wallace goes, I'm going to go back to a tower-seeking win condition. That feels good.
Yeah, he missed it. So wow. Right there, huge mistake, missing the interaction. If he had placed the Tornado just one tile higher, that would have been enough.
Oh my gosh, and the Tesla is too high, so that Cannon Cart still needs to be dealt with. That was a horrible sequence for Wallace.
Yeah, and he doesn't have Skarmy, Tornado, or Rage in cycle. And forces out the Phoenix. Wow, Adnan taking complete control of this game.
Yeah, that was a really, really rough start. Remember, guys, everyone at home, we have our upcoming events on the right-hand side of your screen. Next up is King of the Hill, a separate event on Wednesday. And then our Summer Clash party mode continues Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. All of those, you are able to join in. Royale Masters on Instagram, Twitter, MySpace, Discord, YouTube, and also the join link right there, royale.masters.gg. As these two competitors will be there on Sunday, but who will have the first place spot?
And right there, Adnan, I wonder if Skeleton Barrel was shown first, which allows him to go Wall Breakers, but for some reason, Skeleton Barrel is not classified as a win con, and it allows you, this is the one way where it's completely viable to have Wall Breakers, when you have that secondary win con, Skeleton Barrel.
Yeah, I mean, you look here at what Adnan has, and you don't have a big spell for that Flying Machine as of yet. And that, the pileup of troops between, and we're trying to see right now, what are you going to do? Nothing. So he has to go NATO up high. That way the Wall Breaker connects on the right-hand side, and Wallace just does not have any response. I mean, you talk about the worst time to not have a small spell, and he just does not have a good one.
Yeah, and I don't really know what Wallace can do at this point because it's likely Adnan has a big spell like Poison or Fireball. And then even if he doesn't, Skeleton Barrel chip damage plus the logs will be more than enough. So it looks like Adnan, the fact that he's gone 2 cards into the left lane, he probably has this game locked up when it comes to the spells. And there we go. We see the Poison.
Yep. Yep, good call there, AC. And honestly, it all comes down to a really horrible start to the game there by Wallace. You know, all things going wrong in terms of dealing with that cannon cart and flying machine with the Tesla. And Adnan, the winner of day 2 of our Summer Clash party mode here at Royale Masters, able to take down Wallace, who did the dirty work and took out Mohamed Light along the way. Adnan probably very happy about that, sending Mohamed Light to the 3rd place game where he faced off against Agony King. But Adnan coming back for day 2. Triple Elixir? Nah, triple draft. That's my game mode. We'll see him on our Championship Sunday a week from tomorrow, along with Over and Mohamed Light, and of course, Wallace. AC, you love triple draft. How'd you feel about today?
I mean, I feel so much better now that Adnan has showed me. I mean, he showed me a lot actually, and
yeah.
So overall, throughout the gameplays, we kind of recognized. Well, I mean, certain win conditions you shouldn't use, certain win conditions you should. But Adnan, I mean, just all of his decks were so solid, except that game 1 against Wallace. But every other deck, it was so beautifully balanced. He had enough offense, and his defenses were just so strong every single time.
Yeah, you look at that game 1 and it was a mistake, right? We talked about it was just the wall breakers, not a lot else there to support, but every other game, you look at wall breakers plus Magic Archer, you look at RG, you look at Balloon, you look at Drill plus Firecracker plus Bland. There's so many good decks here. Pretty crazy to see one person that just did it over and over again all throughout the day. Let's take a look at the journey that Adnan went on today. It was a good start was he ran into Ttone as he kicked off our day, and he went 2-0, 2-0, and then he finally ran into a little bit of adversity with Wallace, dropping his very first game of the day, but ends up taking it. On the other side of the bracket, it was Mohamed Light pretty much all day. Him and Wallace were going head-to-head, and then Wallace, boom, 2-0 against Mohamed Light. That wasn't because of a disconnect. That was actually in the 3rd place match where Mohamed Light lost game number 1, even though he had technically come back and turned it around. But he disconnected in the final moments. Agony King takes game 1, and then Momo goes back-to-back for 3rd place, so he ends with a 1st and a 3rd on 2 days of competition. Wallace at the top of the bracket there against Adnan loses 2-1 after Adnan showed us that he knows how to draft better than anyone else. AC, we got some money to give away to our 8 competitors today. What does that look like?
That's right. 8th through 5th place is going to be $150 each. 3rd and 4th received $400 and $200, so that would be going to Mo and Agony King. And then $1,500 and $800 to our 1st and 2nd place finishers, plus the entry to the combination championship, which is going to be $6,000 in the prize pool. $1,800, $1,200 for 1st and 2nd. Hey, look, if you make it to the combination championship and you lose every game once you're there, well, that's okay. Well, I mean, that's okay. You still walk away with the $350.
That's right. That 350 put together with the either 800 or 1500 ends up being good. You know, you're walking away over a K no matter what.
Content.
Mohamed Light already close to $2,000 after his win yesterday. Of course, that entry fee coming down the line, and 3rd place today. Maybe we'll see him next week, maybe not, but we hopefully will see all of you next week. It's a whole week of Royale Masters. You want to get rid of us? Too bad. Subscribe to the channel and follow on Twitch. We got our King of the Hill on Wednesday. It's a separate event that is apart from the Summer Clash. We've been doing them once a month. They're super fun. You know, it's just it's like a gauntlet. It's truly King of the Hill like we've never done before in CRL. If you win, you stay there forever. And speaking of people that also have records, Mohamed Light, I think, won 12 in a row or something like that.
Okay.
At least 10 was up there for our last month. So anyway, that's Wednesday. And then Friday and Saturday, we have Sudden Death and Heist, respectively, a part of this competition. And then on Sunday of next week is our championship combined party mode Summer Clash event. AC and I will be there with you the whole rest of the way. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. For everyone here at Royale Masters, for Tasty Bacon, Dawson, and all of our admins running everything, we appreciate you. We love you. Go out and have some fun. Go touch some grass. For AC and myself, Andrew Guy, we will see you Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday of next week.